Gather around, freaks. I'm making a creature feature, and the feature, the creature. The creature is Freddy, bitch. Ha 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 ha. So gather around the internet broadcast and gather around the internet furnace. Get your metal claw and find a group of teens, because it's time for, hey, did you see this one, bitch?
The night is dark, and the air is still. The moon casts an eerie glow over the internet, where a group of curious individuals have gathered to discuss their shared fascination for the macabre. They hold in their hands a book with a foreboding presence, bound in flesh and inked in blood, a tome of horror that only opens its pages when a sacrifice is made. Within its ancient passages lie the secrets of the most infamous murderers and monsters of all time. Join us. But beware, for once this book is open, there's no telling what horrors may be unleashed. This is the grimoire of familiar killers.
I don't get it. They should be here by now.
What are you gonna do?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hey, did you see this one? Craig, if you want to just leave and come back, that's probably the best way. I see you as green on all screens across the known
It's
land.
a green screen.
Weird. Okay.
I'll do intros while you leave and come back.
Okay.
Welcome to Hey, did you see this one? The weekly review reaction roundtable discussion podcast where we just have to ask the question, hey, did you see this one? On this show, we take a film and we completely pull it apart, leaving no stone unturned. My name is Jason R. Phillips's New Nightmare, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host and illustrious illustrator, pretty good, Steven Spooky Waters. Sometimes I just talk, right? And I'm saying words and I'm not knowing what I'm saying. Oh no, it's still
He's
green.
again. Craig,
I'm green, but it's fine.
unplug your freaking camera and plug it back in.
Well, it's built into my monitor. Hold on, I'm gonna switch cameras. Hold on.
It wouldn't be hey, did you see this one without tech problems. This has never happened before. This is strange,
It is
weird,
very
wacky,
strange.
wild stuff.
We saw him when he first showed up the first time.
Yeah.
Oh, my balls.
Well, Craigie Kruger, you mess around with that for a second. I'll continue to say words. This is, of course,
I saw him there. I saw him again.
For a second.
You guys let me know as soon as you can see me, right? I'm playing with a bunch of settings.
Yeah, we'll let you know. Do I have to edit? Oh, sorry for a sec. Listen, it's episode 176. We're talking New Nightmare. The Grimoire is open and there's goo flying everywhere. If you're playing at home, it's season 3, episode 27, which is great. And Mr. Green Screen himself here has now joined the 5 Times Club. So we could probably give him a round of applause for that.
Hooray!
I will do that. I definitely will do that.
And this is it's a really strange moment because usually by now all the technical difficulties are taken care of. How's it going over there with Tech Watch 2025?
So I'm joining on a different web browser, and we'll see how that goes. I'm going to be right back.
All right, sounds good. In that case, we're going to have to kind of pull an audible. I had asked Craig to do the brief synopsis for this week, but I think it's the perfect time to use the correct sting, right? Because
It's time for a synopsis, bitch.
hell yeah. Steve, do you want to give us a brief synopsis of
Yeah, sure, I can do it. This movie is crazy, but let's talk about why it's crazy. The movie is about Heather Langenkamp, who is the star of the very first Nightmare on Elm Street movie, who is married to hey, he did it over here.
Yeah, but Chrome, down with Chrome, up with Firefox. That's my message.
hell yeah.
And she's playing herself in this movie, and she in this movie is still the star of the Freddy Krueger movies. But the way this movie opens up is that we see that they seem to be remaking Freddy Krueger, or at least a new sequel. But it turns out that's just a crazy dream she's happening, and that's a theme throughout the entire movie. Is just people are happening in their weird dreams. They're just all happening in their dreams.
Not weird that they're going to dreams in this one.
Yeah, we don't get the classic Freddy dreams in this movie, but it's as though the dreams are bleeding over into reality, which is very cool. It's also kind of given from just her perspective, which is sort of a unique thing for the Freddy Krueger movies. It's usually kind of isolate a teen and have Freddy fuck with them, but this movie is, you could debate that it's almost about her potentially going through some sort of psychosis, and if you look at through that lens, it could potentially be just her going crazy, which is fun because that's usually how these movies work. But we all know as the audience that that's not what's going on. But anyway, in the movie, she is interacting with all of the old sort of namesakes of New Line Cinema and the Freddy Krueger series, including Wes Craven, the director of this movie, the writer of this movie, and the writer and director of the first Freddy Krueger movie, who is a character in this movie, as well as the producers and all of that kind of stuff. And they're trying to make a new Freddy Krueger movie. But Wes Craven reveals partway through the movie, but that is not exactly why they're making it. They're not making it for money. They're not making it to bring back Freddy. They're making it to seal an ancient fear demon into the Freddy Krueger franchise once more.
Now, Wes Craven knows a lot about. He's like, oh yeah, like it's all. I don't remember everything he said, but he's like, yeah, it's this and this, and you got to do this to Freddy and this. Like he just pulls it.
It's like he had a weird giant like Necronomicon or something in his office, and he's just flipping through it, being like, oh, of course, it wants to devour innocence. How did I not see that before? But yeah, the movie is basically, what if Freddy Krueger was a demon that was sealed inside of the Freddy Krueger franchise, but now that the movies have stopped being made, he's now free to bleed over into the real world, looking for something else to be contained within, or devour innocence, as Wes Craven says.
Which is kind of interesting because you do the Darth Theorist and the Three-Eyed Raven channels, and this is like a real life what if story almost.
Yeah.
The alternate scripts for this movie are wild. I read one of them like years and years ago. I didn't reread it for this. I was planning on doing it but then work life stuff happened and I just didn't have time. But it's pretty crazy. I'm not sure if it was like an official script that I read, or if it was like a first draft by Wes Craven that had then been like fleshed out and completed by like a fan or something. But it was pretty wacky.
Yeah, the only other movie I'd really like to see alternate scripts for is a lot of them, but Alien 3, because that went through like so many
they actually made
directors and writers and stuff like it. There's like 3 different Alien 3 movies.
They made it.
There's an assembly footage one, yeah. Sorry,
they made it into a graphic novel, the alternate, like the first sort of draft script, the one that was like the crazy one that Fincher wanted to make, that they're like, you cannot make this. This will be the most expensive movie ever fucking made. My friend Cam, who has been on the show a couple of times, he let me borrow it, and it's pretty good. Like the planet is made of like wood, like it's just like a giant wood planet, and you're like, what? This is wild. Anyway, it's really cool. But yeah, you're right though. Like very few movies are you're like, do I want to see the alternate version of The Matrix starring Will Smith? Like, not really. Like I kind of like The Matrix,
or like Back to the Future with Eric Stoltz. Like,
Yeah.
no, I think
whatever.
J Fox.
It would just be exactly the same, I think, with Eric Stoltz. He would just be lame,
just less charming,
less charismatic. Craig,
three of them.
I had asked you to do the synopsis since you were having technical difficulties. Of course, I had Steve do it. But did you have anything you wanted to add to that synopsis, or was that pretty much what you had written down?
That was pretty much it. Yeah, I mean, like to summarize, movie star who stars in movies. Now we're looking at her as herself, and she's making another movie, and chaos ensues. Basically what Steve said is what I was going to say.
Perfect. Okay, how about this though? Let's talk, since it's basically the last Freddy helmed movie. We are of course going to do Freddy versus Jason in October. Spoilers if you're watching now, when you see the poster come
remember
up,
that
remember it. But do you want to, let's talk about our brief histories about the franchise at large and also this film, because there's a sting. There's always a sting.
There's always a sting. My bad.
But yeah, since Craig, you were already talking. Give her hell, buddy.
Yeah. I mean, I was on the episode that you guys did for Nightmare on Elm Street 4, so some of this is a bit of a rehash. But I remember in high school, I went to a buddy's cottage with him and his sister and her friend, and we were like 14. We stayed up all night watching all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, but at that point it was only 6. There was only the first 6, so I knew those very well. And then this one came out, and I kind of lost my mind. That's about it. I find this to be, it's the most original one since the first one, I would have to say. I mean, if you've seen it, you know what I mean. It's way different than any of the other ones. It's not a sequel at all. Mm-hmm. That's basically it. I mean, we can talk more as I get into it.
Yeah, for sure. How about you, Steve?
So this one I didn't actually see until much later than the other ones. So most of our discussions about this movie and our histories with them is always, I watched them all when I was in high school, when I was finally a brave enough boy to stop cowering from the horror movies and see them for what they are, which is a bloody good time. But this one, I don't know why it was, but like whenever channels would play the Nightmare movies in some sort of marathon format on channels, this one always was like left out. And I'm not sure if it was a distribution thing or what, but it seemed to me that they would play 1 to 6 and then they wouldn't play this one, which I guess
maybe too long. This is much longer than the others.
It could be that it was not cuttable for television. That would make sense.
Or they just didn't bother to cut it. They were like, it's not one of the main ones. There's no jokes.
Yeah, or they're just like, people don't like this one. But like I for one, I think it might be one of my favorite, if not my favorite of all of them. It's weird because when I did finally see it, it made me for like a nostalgic for a time that I was still almost part of. Like you watch this movie and it's just dripping with 90s nostalgia in a way that you're like, the house almost feels like the Full House set or something, and you're like, you're still kind of living in that time period.
All the clothes and the hairstyles and the actors. Like that little kid, the Dylan, the son. I mean, he was in Full House and probably tons of other sitcoms, for like a 2-year period in the 90s.
And then they're like, all right, kid, you're too old for this business. Go get an education.
Go look up his profile picture on IMDb right now. It's
I'll get that
weird, creepy goatee.
I don't want to do that. That'll make me feel sad. But yeah, it's weird because it when I saw it, it was like I was nostalgic for childhood in a weird way, because it kind of felt aesthetically like things that were familiar to me, even though I didn't grow up in fucking Hollywood in like a bungalow style mansion. Like.
Hey. I'm just learning this about you now, that you didn't learn up in Hollywood in a bungalow style mansion.
I didn't know. I didn't have a spiral staircase in the middle of my open concept kitchen.
Still learning new things about Steve all this time later.
I didn't have a beautiful pool and a nice backyard. Anyway, so what I mean to say is that I ended up seeing this one much later than the others, and I always just assumed it was bad for some reason. And I think it's because it's like, well, they didn't play it with the other one, so it must be like the garbage one or whatever. And then when I eventually did see it, I was like, maybe this is the best one. Like, it doesn't rely on a bunch of shaky lore and like a bunch of continuity errors that they're trying to, retcon halfway through movies or right at the beginning of other movies or at the end of movies. It's just kind of like, we're just going to tell our own sort of contained version of Freddy, and we don't have to worry about any of that because it's technically not Freddy. We can just use the iconography however we want. And it does a really nice job of also, you know, referencing even in subtle ways that you wouldn't really notice unless you watched the first one. You either know the first one by the back of your palms, the back of your hand, I guess is what your back of your palm is, and or having watched the first one close enough in proximity to this one to be able to pick up on those little things, like when she says like "screw your past" or whatever. Like that's such a subtle kind of nod to the first movie that unless you've seen that one a million times, you're not even going to realize that that's a reference. It's nice. It's like good fan servicey. It's not sort of
it is, yeah, it's subtle. There was the sticky stairs towards the end from the first one. There's the tongue coming out of the phone.
Yeah,
there was one other one. I think I wrote it down.
It's like they're almost like they're doing a best of, but they're not quite, or they're doing a best of, but they're reimagining it to make
subtle. They're not like
and even the stuff that isn't subtle, the stuff that's like ham fisting you to death is like it's still good. Like when the dad, the actor who plays the dad literally transforms into the character and starts referring to her as like, okay, baby, sure, Freddy Krueger, whatever you're talking about. I got to go back to work. It's a busy day at the police sheriff's office.
Yeah, that's the legendary John Saxon.
Yeah.
Who's been in a lot of horror movies, including Prom Night 2, which is a hot mess, but you guys should watch that. It's fun.
Had the same wacky hairline for like 25 years. You're like,
yeah, since like
a choice that this man has made. Yeah.
Yeah, he waxes. He waxes his head like right.
Yeah,
like here. My green screen's fucking with me, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's a choice, but I mean, it's one of those things that I think he was probably known for it, right? So they're like, "Don't change your hair. We love it. We love this weird hair. People know you for your."
Find the one movie he did where he just has like a massive like afro. So
right.
Like, fuck it. I'm going to grow a mane. I'm going to tease it,
and nobody knew it was him. They're like, "Who the hell is this guy? He reminds me of someone." But yeah, that's sort of my brief history. It wasn't so brief, I apologize, but it's one of the ones that I do have like sort of a clear line when I watched it for the first time, and I'm not sure what the age was, but it was at least a couple of years after the other ones, and I remember just being really pleasantly surprised. Not to mention all the stuff we're going to talk about in terms of like meta filmmaking and how that evolved from this out of it, even within Wes Craven, but even these other slasher movies that we've already discussed on the show. It's cool. It's
very cool. There, like my review, my final thought review is in summation of this sort of idea, and I love it. Just really quick, it's not as depressing as you think. This is what he looks like. He kind of looks like he could be one of the Savage brothers.
Okay, the full beard helps. The picture that I saw, he had a very like wispy, like he was just able to grow a beard for the first time.
I think the picture I saw a picture of him, but I put 2025 and it looks like he looked really awkward.
Is he still an actor or something? That looks like he's at like a panel or something.
He looks like he does Freddy Krueger panels.
Crazy.
Yeah. Once you're in a nerdy movie, like you're on cons forever.
But he was also in Pet Cemetery, and he was also in Kindergarten Cop, right? And Full House.
Oh, yeah. Girls have a penis and boys have a vagina.
Not a tumor.
It's not a penis.
It's not a penis. Not a penis. But as far as my brief history for this movie goes, it's basically I watched it this week. But what's interesting is now I've seen all of these films. These were movies I could not handle even broaching when I was, when they were coming out or when they were out. I was even most of them or some of them. Here's the thing about this film. Remember when it came out, and I remember somebody explaining to me that it was about Wes Craven making a movie, but all I knew about Freddy Krueger is that it was a group of kids who would get killed by the slasher. Like that was just what I knew. So in my head, all these years, 20 years later, or 30 years late, 20? What year is it? 30 years later, I thought that it was a group of kids are on set making the movie and they get killed one by one Freddy Krueger style. But it's even more meta than that, as it turns out, because it's about literally Nancy from the original movie, who is an actor in real life, who gets called back to be in the movie. And in the movie, it's so meta. Kind of get the idea that she's a little bit like on that washed up tip. So, yeah, sorry, Steve, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's like it's so meta that it's even stuff that you would generally kind of eye roll at, but like it's done in a way that I'm like, I like this. Like, I don't care
Also,
that
it's like
cheesy.
probably one of the very first examples of doing something that's so meta. Like, it's looking back, I didn't realize it at the time really, but looking back, like this probably set a lot of groundwork for a lot of like the meta stuff that would come
Well,
later.
Scream, obviously, and
Scream, Wes Craven's next movie.
As a happy accident, we toiled over this. We were gonna do Hellraiser, and then Steve
My
went through like a
nickname in high
weird.
school, Happy Accident.
Do not do all the Hellraiser movies. You will
No.
upset with yourself after
I've
the third
seen.
one.
I'm one of the rare people who I'm like the 1% achievement on Xbox who has seen all of the Hellraiser movies in a short amount of time, and they
Yeah.
get progressively worse and
so much worse. I think you've gone further. I think I gave up. Like, I think you've seen
The
more
newest one
Yeah.
was good. The 2022 one is pretty.
I still haven't seen that one yet, but I almost classify that in like the reboot realm, right?
Yeah,
I don't
it's a
know
reboot.
yet.
I've been meaning to watch it.
But my point
it's
is
not
that
really, but unless you, I want to talk about that movie, but also I want to talk about this movie.
But my point is that like when you get to this point, Steve was going through a Scream sort of resurgence. You went and watched all the Screams, and you kept
the
being
new
like,
one
these
came
movies
out, so
rule.
I was like, I'm gonna watch all of these, and they are so good, man. It's like
So that's
it's one of those things where like
TV
I
show was
remember watching like Scream 3 and being like, ugh, this is shit. But then I watched it recently. I'm like, this is not shit. You know what's shit? A lot of stuff that comes out now.
Yeah.
I'm like, this, I didn't appreciate this enough at the time.
so next. So in October, we're gonna do the Jason Takes Manhattan, Freddy versus Jason, and Scream 1.
No, you're taking Manhattan?
That's the next one.
You are. No, you.
Jason,
Get it?
Manhattan alone.
Get it?
I
Your
think
name
it.
is Jason?
That city's been
hate
through
it.
enough. Yeah.
But yeah, as far as my brief history goes, I've seen them all. Let God sort them out. Let Freddy sort them out.
But this was the first time you watched it, right? This week?
Yeah. And I said, I had my headcanon for this movie was a completely different film that I made up over the last 30 years, which I was pleasantly surprised it was not
several
that.
times.
Speaking of years, watching this, I realized it came out in 1994, and they mentioned it in the movie. Oh, it's it's been 10 years. Holy shit, they made 7 of these movies in 10 years. That's like basically
they did
1.5 years.
like
That's
a Saw.
crazy.
They did like a Saw thing where it was like every year a new one would come out. They were doing quick turnover. It was like they would film them. They would have a script ready being made while they were filming one, and then they would just make another one, which is like they still do that now, but they don't do it to the level of production value that we've seen in the Freddy movies. But like, yeah, 10 years is a huge gap, but it's worth it though, because just the evolution of, I mean, we can probably walk ourselves into production talk, right? At this point.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. Quiet on set. Are we rolling? Okay, let's shoot this piece of shit. Sound. Speed.
Language.
Action!
Just quickly, we have one more movie in the 80s, and then we're in the 90s, which is also great. The next Jason Takes Manhattan is the last 80s movie, so this is a great kind of stop gap.
Jason Goes to Hell is like one of the worst ones.
I'm excited for it though when we cover it this time next year.
Yeah, just because it's in the 90s doesn't mean it's going to be good.
No, but it's gonna.
In the 90s, actually.
The 90s is where a lot of my nostalgia comes from.
This movie being in the 90s is excellent because it takes it just feels right for the story that they're telling, and all of the upgrades that they give to Freddy in general are all sort of like cliche 90s tropey things, but they're all so fucking good. Like I'm like laughing with joy at his leather pants and his green fedora. I'm like, this is amazing. Like I fucking love it. Even just his look, it's not as gross as some of the other ones we've seen. It's not as just like shitty as some of the other ones that we've seen. I would argue it's not that scary compared to a few ones we've seen, but it is cool looking. It's cool looking.
I wanted to mention this, and I said this in the pre-show, but this is like firmly in the like Ninja Turtles movies era, and I feel like this is like if the people that made the Ninja Turtle suits made a Freddy costume, it feels like the Freddy that's attacking her in real life would be the same Freddy they would put in a movie in 1994. The meta levels, the meta pylon is so crazy to me that he looks like the movie version of Freddy. Does that make sense to you guys?
No.
No? Okay. Well.
No, I mean, if I can give my take on how he looks, I mean, I do think he looks scarier, but I love that it doesn't look like Robert Englund. Like that's my favorite part
Right.
about his new look is that like they're able. He still plays. Spoiler: Robert Englund still plays Freddy, but it doesn't look like him at all. You only know if it's him really if you look at the credits, in my opinion. And I
I
love
think
that they were able to do that with
I
makeup.
think he does still have kind of a particular shape in the nose and the cheekbones and jaw. Like you
Sure,
can,
I think it's yeah.
you can. It's almost like if you were to take the lore of the movie and be like, it's like a demon looked at a poster of Freddy and was like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna emulate that kind of thing. And it's like so he's still got bits and pieces of Robert Englund in there, but you're right. He doesn't like you see Robert Englund in the Freddy makeup, like as Robert Englund, like in the beginning of the movie, just be like, ah, yes, oh yeah, there you go.
yeah. All the viewers can look at him.
And then
right
the
now.
one behind me is just one that I drew, but
I
yeah, they're quite different. Like he doesn't look like a burn victim so much as flesh
like a
attempting
demon.
to. It looks like flesh trying to like grow on top of meat. Like
like a
I like
swallow
that.
meat, yeah.
I like that a lot.
and you know we've gone through several different Freddy transitions in the franchise. Some are great, some are bad. One of them, he just looks like a chewed up piece of bubble gum. One of them,
Well, that's what I wanted to mention. I think the last movie, I liked it because I like that like overproduced look, and you were like, go look at it again and really take in that he looks like a chewed up piece of bubble gum, and I can't unsee it because he
Yeah,
does.
no, that's his worst look. Or 5. He looks real bad in 5 too.
It's 5 or 6. It's either 5. As it gets more movie, the movies become more trying to be a movie, like higher production value for the mask and stuff, and it's not just like painted on makeup. They like slap a mask on Robert Englund and like we're put this bullshit out. This one, that's what I'm saying. This one felt like we were seeing if Wes Craven had made the movie in the movie, that's what Freddy would look like.
I understand what you're saying, but I also agree with Craig. Like I'm
Okay,
like, I get what you're saying. I just don't really agree with you.
That's fair.
I think that I see where your brain is at in terms of being like, it's a 90s monster makeup. It's different than 80s. It has its own sort of vibe and feel to it. And I would say like, yeah, I can see how you put this in there with Ninja Turtles. But to me, it still feels a little bit more tactile, but I do think that the wetness needed to be more wet. It doesn't feel wet enough.
I agree. I would not have thought it out on my own, but I agree. The wetness needed to look more wet for sure.
I will say Ninja Turtles
in the
3
90s and 80s. If
so
I
wet.
can, like so Freddy's Dead came out in 91, right? That was the 90s. Do the math. They were still holding on to that 80s makeup, so it's like nice that they refreshed it because it was tired by Freddy's Dead for sure.
Right.
But that last one, like that one feels more like a kind of like a crappy Ninja Turtles to me. This one doesn't feel like a Power Rangers villain, but the last one did feel sort of like an Ivan Ooze. Like,
2-1, Jason means Stephen win.
But to be fair, Ivan Ooze was super wet. His whole thing was wet ooze.
He was literally a chewed up piece of bubblegum.
Exactly. Just some stats real quick. It was written and directed by Wes Craven, returning to the helm.
Are you telling a movie called Wes Craven's New Nightmare was written and directed by Wes Craven?
Box office 19.8 million on an $8 million budget. This movie looks like it would cost way more than $8 million. I was surprised to find that out because I thought, in the meta-ness of it, I thought the budget was much higher.
Save when you film at Wes Craven's house and Robert Englund's house,
and hire literal executives to do the acting.
This leads into a point that I wanted to bring up, and that it's genius to make a movie about making a movie because they know how to make a movie about making a movie. They already have the equipment. They can film their own fucking cameras and green screens and lights and stuff. So like all the sets and stuff, they already kind of had it because they're already a film studio. So that's maybe reducing the budget a little bit. Plus, it's like 20 million in today money.
I just had a really neat idea. I was like, how do they make a sequel to this? Like a Lego sequel? They're making a documentary about the making of this movie that gets haunted by Freddy again. And since it's been 30 years, the ghost is coming back.
You
It's been
fucking
so long.
found footage Freddy Krueger movie. Is that what you're saying?
I kind of do.
You do a prequel to this, which I know already doesn't make any sense, but just wait for the title of the movie: Wes Craven's Old Nightmare.
Get out.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
but
that.
I mean, like there is a certain level of charm, but there's also a certain level of disconnect that you feel when you're watching this type of person. But some people like it, some people don't. I often enjoy seeing these kind of sets and this kind of worlds that is so foreign to me, right? Like being rushed around. Like the beginning of this movie is so fucking hectic, where she's just constantly being rushed from location to location to have like meetings all day, and it's like this is your life. And your
Can I,
son's
for a second, I have a summary. Speaking of hectic in the beginning of the movie, I have a summary of all the crazy shit that happens in the first 7 minutes of the movie. First, we open on Freddy's glove being created, like close up. A glove is being forged. Whoops! It's just a movie. There's no new real glove. Whoops again, the glove comes to life and kills a bunch of people. Whoops again, it was all a dream, but now there's an earthquake, and that's, I guess, what caused the dream. And then also the son is making monster faces in his oatmeal. Daddy cut his finger just like Heather saw in her dream. And then there's also these phone calls. He's like, oh, have you been getting more of those phone calls? That is all 7 minutes. This is a whole bunch of like upfront.
Before we get like too deep into the movie itself, I do want to go a little bit further into the production talk of this movie, and talk about those sort of alternative scripts that
I was gonna ask you at this point if you wanted to fill us in a bit on that, because I'm interested.
Wes Craven originally, like when he started the script for this, he was like the main character in the movie for a lot of it, and like the idea was that he was on the run from Freddy in a van with a typewriter or a computer, and he was just writing the script, and like he had cut his own eyelids off so that he couldn't fall asleep, and he's just like frantically writing at a computer. And like I've seen like illustrations and stuff that they're just so like, it's so creepy and weird, but at the same time it's so also like genuinely funny to just think about Wes Craven like writing a crazy Freddy Krueger story about himself. And
like a panicked and paranoid who's that guy who did On the Road? Kerouac, just like Jack writing Kerouac, in a van as he travels across the country trying to escape Freddy. That's funny.
And then we've also got like the bones of that script were like mostly just about him, and then he's going and revisiting the actors and characters from the other movies to try and be like, you need to help me, Freddy's coming back and he's coming for all of us. And I think it was a much more sort of grand sweeping story than what we get, even though this is still pretty epic in a way. It only takes place in about 4 locations, and there's not a lot of characters, and it is intimate, and I do appreciate the fact that the perspective is pretty focused on Heather and not kind of constantly having to go into other people's, but like we're not getting a Robert Englund facing Freddy Krueger in a dream showdown, which would maybe be fun, but we don't need it. Yeah. I mean, I would kind of love that, to be honest, like Robert Englund being killed by Robert.
I mean, give me more Freddy, I'll take it. I love whatever it's going to be.
But we don't need it as fun as it would be. And then we also get Robert Shea, who's been in a bunch of the Freddy Krueger movies, who is sort of the he's the man who kind of kept Freddy alive, and he's also the man that like breathed new life into New Line Studios. We've talked about this before on the podcast. It's a pretty well-known fact that like New Line Cinema was dying, and the first Freddy Krueger movie brought it back to life, and to the point that they refer to it as like the house that Freddy built, I think. Yeah. And Robert Shea he's been there the whole time. Remember the ticket booth guy, Jason, who's like, ticket please. Yep. That's Robert Shea. And he's also in this movie as himself, which is fun. But he also does like kind of an admirable job of acting. I'm like, you're doing an all right job, Bobby.
Better than you would think. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you didn't know that he was the producer of these movies and has been the entire time and is essentially a money man with creative input, you wouldn't know that it wasn't an actor. If you were just sort of an outsider watching the movie, you'd be like, this guy's doing an all right job at this character. And then Sarah Reiser is also there, who's also a producer, and she's like the lady who you can tell like this is not an actor. Like I was watching it with Danny, and Danny's like, why is this person acting so weird? Like they're trying to not be aware that the camera, like they're focusing to not accidentally look at the camera. And I'm like, that's because that's one of the producers. And she's just being like, hey Heather, how are you? Come with
non-actors
me.
Always have such a weird non-actory way. Like they don't get that you have to almost yes and like with your face. There was
Yeah,
like,
some
people
hello
are
and
really
welcome
good.
into the studio today, and good to see you. And they probably had to take that 10 times to even get
Oh, at
that
least.
out of them.
I know, but
My
I also
favorite-
don't fault people for that at all. Like it's
No,
like
no,
we
no.
want to have
It's
No,
this
of
not a
course
movie.
fault thing.
I-
It's they're obvious.
I love,
But it's also
a
like
great
some people-
example of that is Dan Marino in Ace Ventura. He is so
Exactly.
terrible
Yeah.
in it.
Yeah.
Some people also just like freeze up when they know a camera's on them, and they're like, "I don't know what I'm
Yeah, I do.
scared."
I could not be an actor. No, no fucking
I love being a voice actor. I could never ever be a face and hand actor.
I could probably do it. Just be like,
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know
'cause
what
you
the
have
fuck
a
I'm
nose.
doing.
Okay, you can put the guns away now, Jason. All 10 of them.
Snicked bub. Listen, I wanted to just quickly mention the cinematographer for this film as well, Mark Irwin. The only reason I bring him up really is because he is the cinematographer on Scream, RoboCop 2. There's something about Mary Old School, and also if you look at his credits, he's got 145 credits, and it's all stuff that you've heard of. You may have not seen Pup Star Better Together or Puppy Star Christmas, but you've definitely seen RoboCop 2. So I just want to shout him out. And finally, the score in this movie is
Well, you don't want to
fucking-
talk about him? Let's talk about him and his camera work first before we move on to the next thing. You
Okay,
can
I didn't
very-
know how much
I
you wanted to
love
really get into it.
cinematography.
Okay.
I just want to talk about the cinematography. If you're going to bring up the cinematographer, we have to talk about the cinematography in this movie. I think that it is leagues above the last like 3 Freddy Krueger movies. I think that the second and third Freddy Krueger movie get very creative. The fourth one is okay. The fifth one stops caring about the camera. What's the one where the pin drops? Is that 5? There's like that
That's
one
the one
movie
with-
that has like one good moment in it. And
That's the
everything
one
else-
with the kid, isn't it?
Remember the deaf
No,
guy?
that's
deaf
that's the
guy.
one with the deaf guy and the.
That's the one with Yaphet
and the-
Kotto. So that's the
Yeah.
sixth one. So that's the last one. And this movie, it's like it's being rewritten, right? They're like, we're gonna take Freddy Krueger how we know it, and it's now being reformatted with different sensibilities, the sensibilities of the 90s. And it's all the better for it. You know, like filming Freddy always from low angles is not a new thing, but doing it in a way where they light it particularly interestingly and have him sort of juxtaposed to these really soft and comfortable environments. Like having Freddy Krueger in like a 90s beige and wooded environment with like armchairs around is like so interesting. Like you're just like, this is good. And him like kicking stuff with his weird leather pants. They did a very good job of shooting almost everything. You know, like I can think of several moments in this movie that in my brain, when I think of the Freddy Krueger franchise, a few shots from this movie specifically pop into my mind as like iconic shots. So like the moment where Robert Englund is like waving his hands in front of the audience and everyone's cheering.
Yeah, he's backlit and everything.
He's backlit, there's smoke. Like that's
great scene.
iconic to me. The part where he's raising out of the bed and cuts through the
Yeah,
sheet.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
The
Maybe
part-
not for you, but when Robert Englund is on the phone with Nancy and she's telling him about her dreams, and he's like, it clicks for him and he looks, and you see like the painting. That cut to the painting is iconic for me, where he's got his painting of Freddy.
And he's like, no kidding. And he keeps like putting the phone down. He's like, I'm not listening to you right now. Just hold on.
Keep talking for the audience, but I don't care.
For some reason, my Alex Jones impression is coming out when I'm ready to do Freddy. I'm in the walls. But yeah, I think the cinematography changes the DNA of at least Wes Craven movies as we know them, right? Like he after Scream, he only makes I think one more, which is like that werewolf movie that I don't think I ever saw. Did you guys, either of you guys see that movie?
Which one?
I can't even remember what it's called. I think Christina Ricci.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have that on DVD actually behind me somewhere.
Mhm.
It was okay. I mean, it was not a Wes Craven classic.
It's not
But-
about like a woman who is like in a werewolf TV show who becomes a werewolf or something. Like it's not a crazy.
No, it's
meta.
not meta at all. I mean, spoiler alert: Christina Ricci becomes a werewolf, but
I think they gave that away in the trailer because like I
Yeah.
figured.
and
What's
probably
it
the
called?
cover.
Is it like
I think the
Video?
cover of the I can go find it. I'm
It's
not
okay.
gonna-
Don't worry. I have a computer. I can look it up. But I
Yeah,
just
exactly.
wondered.
I think the cover of the DVD, I don't have the case anymore, but I think it's like a wolf on one half and then Christina Ricci on the other half.
Yeah.
So I mean, when you buy it, you know what you're in for.
The one other thing that I wanted to say is like the the film
It's called
language-
Cursed.
Yes.
Okay. The film language of this movie is so comparable and synonymous with Scream. Like watching this movie, you can almost feel it. You're like, I'm watching a Scream movie when it comes to the visual language of everything that's being presented to you. And in the best way possible. The lighting, the camera work, even just like the intensity and way they shoot people going through fear. You're like, this happens so much. So many people on phones, like, just being like,
Also the meta-ness, like the way they address it as being a film like about horror movies, like Scream, it takes a lot of cues from New Nightmare. In fact,
and even
I'm sure both films were being worked on at the same time, so like it probably
they're
before
very
the
close
film
together.
was even done was influencing.
But yeah, like the meta-ness of Scream is different from the meta-ness from this, but like the meta-ness from this ends up becoming Scream eventually as well, right? Like Scream goes through so many things where it's like then a Scream movie is being made within Scream.
Exactly. Yeah, Scream 2, we got Stab.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about Scream when we get to Scream, but I just wanted to kind of gush about the cinematography for a little bit because I do think it's really, really great in this film for the most part. And like, the special effects are, but like the practical effects are great.
Yeah.
I
So
feel like I haven't taken a breath in a while.
we're long in the tooth for the production talk, but Jason,
I told you you're not allowed to talk about the length of the episode in the episode ever.
I'm allowed to talk about it though.
Right. So I tried to look up the score for the New Nightmare, and even on IMDb, it sort of just has a whole team. It's not like
interesting
score by. But what I will say is music by J. Peter Robinson, I guess. Is the composer.
I see this, but I'm wondering, like, I don't know enough about this to be able to talk about it as an educated man. So I'll say that like it's good. Like the original score is kind of great. Like it has the Freddy music throughout it. It doesn't do things that are as interesting as that the last one where when the kid is like that constant sort of classical music is being mixed in with the Freddy Krueger music, which is like super interesting and cool.
But disco version of the Freddy theme.
It wasn't even a disco version really, but like I know what you mean, but it was kind of like
version.
It feels like it does feel almost sort of like so funky here. Like this is funky. Like I almost was gonna put it in with the synopsis this week, but I'm like, are we gonna get dinged for that? And anyway, maybe when Freddie gives his acceptance speech for his Grimoire Award, we can get away with it.
For sure. Yeah, that would be great. But I just thought that they're just really quick. I thought there were a lot of really cool swells of score in this that really like underline what's about to happen and what's happening. And it felt a lot louder than the other films that are a lot more like spooky. It felt a lot more orchestral.
They also used there's like a particular segment of the Freddy Krueger theme that everybody knows, and if they heard it, they would be like, I know that's from a horror movie that I'm familiar with. They might not know.
Ding, 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 ding.
I know you know it, Jason. I'm just saying that, like,
I'm helping.
Yeah, and they took that sort of that trilly bit and they kind of smeared it everywhere in a way that like I was very into. Like it's there during the action sequences. It's there during the creepy sequences. It's even there during the mom being a loving mom sequences where like it's like a more lighthearted version of it, and you're like they're really using this smartly. And that's the kind of thing that I love because it's almost like they only used it for the dream sequences a lot of the time in the older movies, and they didn't
when Freddy was about to appear like as a foreboding thing.
Yeah, it's just Freddy's theme. It's not the theme for Nightmare.
Yeah, and speaking to that, so like taking from the first 6 movies when they have that mechanism in place and it's the Freddy theme, having it throughout the whole movie. You never know when Freddy's going to come. You have it ingrained in you, like, oh, that means Freddy's nearby. So Freddy's always nearby. Like he's never not there in this movie.
Yeah, and in this movie, it's like he doesn't just come for you when you're sleeping. It's not necessarily a sleep.
No, he's in your head.
He's just everywhere. Yeah, he's
it's not like what was it, number 3 or number 4, where like it was like one person was pulling other people into their dreams. Like it's not even that. Like they could have gone that way where it's like Nancy's dreams or like the child's dreams pulling people in. And I thought about that for a second, but then I was like, no, they're not really doing that. Like you're right. It's yeah, you can just kind of go after everyone in their psyches or whatever.
Yeah, and
The dreams do come up though. I mean, the first real death, was Heather's husband, which was kind of reminiscent of Nightmare on Elm Street 4, because he starts falling asleep at the wheel, and as soon as someone in a Freddy movie starts nodding off like
Yeah.
yeah. My note on that was, daddy, buddy boy's falling asleep at the wheel.
Did you write down daddy? Daddy's falling asleep.
No, I wrote down buddy boy.
Buddy boy.
I wrote down
Should
daddy
we get into the body of the episode and let's break this down?
The daddy of the episode.
The body of the episode.
Come to daddy.
Come to daddy. So well, that's Hellraiser. To set the scene,
Hellraiser.
Craig sort of already talked about it, but movie opens up with the mechanical parts being built for Freddy's glove, I guess. It pulls back to reveal that it's a film set recreating recreating a Nightmare on Elm Street film, and Wes Craven is there, you know,
And he's like, more blood, more fire, please.
Like,
smiling and really happy about everything, which I thought was really funny. And I guess
he also seems like a nice guy, Wes Craven.
Right?
I mean,
Yeah.
But also, I don't know. He also seems like
And
he's
also
probably-
George Romero, I heard, was a really, really nice guy.
yeah. But also he lives in like a crazy mansion on the hill, and he has like servants and shit. So you're kind of like, oh, maybe he's not that nice. Like, he's got
So
servants.
he's like the most prolific horror movie maker ever made.
Is
Yep,
this-
someone made him.
Is the film that they're making supposed to be a sequel or a remake of the original?
It's a dream. It's not being made.
No, because later we find out that Wes Craven is working on it,
Yeah.
but
No,
that's
the
not the
mo-
same as the movie at the
the-
beginning. Yeah, you're right.
Guys, the movie that Wes Craven is working on in this movie
Is
is
the
the movie we're watching. That's what's
Right.
happening.
Right.
That's so meta.
So I to say in my brief history, another thing I thought this whole time watching the movie is she was going to wake up and it was all going to be a dream. But then it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
It's
And then
so much better.
But then it's so meta that you wake up and you were just dreaming, and Heather Langenkamp was there, and she was like,
Oh.
"Jason, it was just a dream." And you're like, "Ah, ding,
you
ding,
imagine?
ding, ding."
I married him, Heather Langenkamp. Okay. I'm into
She is
it.
very
So,
beautiful in this movie. I will say.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, when this
Um,
came out, I thought she was like so much older. She's like 28.
Yeah, but you're also
Like, in
a
this movie.
child.
She's still
Yeah.
a young lady, but
Yeah.
she seems so much older than the original movies. And
She's only 28 in this movie.
teenager
I
when
guess
these
she was
movies
like a
were-
teen. She was a teen in the first one, right? Like,
I assumed she was like
Probably
18. I haven't looked
18.
into it, but 10 years later, she would be 28 if she was 18. in the
That's
first
math, brother.
one. That's math.
Right. It's so also Miko Hughes, Dylan is he's a young boy. He's there as well. And also Freddy's glove seems to come to life, attacking crew, crawling around like Thing from Adam's Family. I wonder if they use the same
what a
techniques.
good fun effect it was too, though. Like just
Yeah.
the hand crawling around, like just like on the claws, though. So it's,
Yeah,
it's
like,
almost
it reminded me of a face hugger from Aliens, like just
Yeah?
skittering around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I was thinking was like Jason Thing from the Adams Family, but if he was wearing high heels, like this is the equivalent of him wearing high heels.
High fingers.
He's trying to walk around in high heels.
It's drag queen thing.
I think.
Which is what I wanted to say too is like the first Adam's Family movie came out, I think, 1991. So I wonder if they use like the same kind of technique, just somebody going like this around, and then they just CG out the body.
Yeah, they just had like a green. I'm pretty sure they just had like green spandex going up to the wrist for the Addams Family.
Right.
I don't know about this one.
Yeah.
I have a fun fact from Wes Craven in a 1994 interview. He said that this idea is based off his real life nightmares and eerie events during nightmare productions, various movie productions, which they also kind of cover in this
Yeah,
movie.
they say that in the movie.
Yeah, like this is happening to him.
Yeah, for him, this is even more meta than it is for us. It's crazy. I like that though, because like I famously have horrifying nightmares. I don't dream, I just nightmare. That's it. I don't have nice dreams. They're all nightmares. I should start writing them down and become a famous Hollywood movie writer, director.
You
Yeah,
should,
do
but
it.
when you write down a dream later, it's always like
like that Seinfeld episode where he wrote down his
sponge
joke.
moved weird, and then there was an eye in the sky, and then I said to myself, "I'm myself." But it's all just a dream. Heather wakes up from this dream, and it seems as though LA has been getting hit by a series of earthquakes at this time.
More than usual.
Yeah, which I think the implication is that it's him, right? It's
the demon
Freddy.
or whatever the evil is causing it.
At first, I just remember going into this movie and when seeing it, I'm like, what are the earthquakes supposed to even be again? And then as the movie went, I'm like, oh, is it just Freddy? Like Freddy is just like worming around, fucking with everybody. Yeah.
According to Fangoria in 1994, the earthquakes were inspired by the real 1994 LA earthquakes.
Earthquakes, my other nickname in high school.
And they were happening during filming. So
no, that's just when you go take a dump on the soccer field without telling anybody.
Earthquake. I gotta go take a fucking earthquake.
Why wouldn't you tell anyone? Tell someone you're doing that.
No, it's funnier when they're like, I found another earthquake out there.
Heather wakes up at her home with her husband Chase, played by David Newsom, and her son Dylan. Los Angeles has been hit by 5 earthquakes.
I have to say, his company name, the worst. And his company logo, even worse. For a special effects company, holy shit. Drop a couple of shekels on a graphic designer, man. Chase, you're really dropping the ball here. It's called Cut to the Chase.
Hey,
it's like all cut to the cross and then Chase in like an italicized font with just like a slash going through a yellow card, and I'm like, that is the worst logo design I've ever seen.
Well, here's the problem when you have meta movies like this.
Yeah,
you get a real film production company trying to make a stage production company, so they cheapen like their own skills a little bit to make it like look like it's not real inside the movie. Yeah. And I think they went too far.
I agree. But like I feel like there are other movies that do that don't cheapen out, right? And like good example would be like Tarantino movies where like he makes fake brands and things within his movies, but he wants them to feel within a certain era or year. Rather than
famously, Morley's cigarettes, which have been in X-Files and I think Tarantino movies and a ton of shit. Morley's cigarettes, they just look like Marlboros. It just says Morley's instead of Marlboros on them.
I think that's fine too, to just like change an existing logo slightly to be like it's like the equivalent. But I do appreciate when
Let's chips.
Yeah, Let's, not Lay's, Let's.
So yeah, that's another example of them just blatantly ripping off something that exists. But I do always appreciate when they just come up with a brand spanking new weird design that you're like, whoa, now that it's not trying to emulate anything.
Like Jason, you would know, what do they call the tablet in the office? The Saber tablet.
Pyramid.
Yeah, the pyramid. Yeah, Steve got.
And then they have a small one that's called an arrowhead. Like it's like
I mean, that's obviously what you're saying, Steven, but like a spoof or a parody of.
Yeah, like that feels like it's purposefully stupidly designed because it's like the worst shape for anything to be.
Yeah.
But part of the comedy of it is that, right? But at the same time, you could see a dumb, like we've all seen the Cybertruck, right? Like that's a stupid design.
That's how I know we live in a fucking parody of reality. The Cybertruck existing.
Yeah,
it's Homer's fucking supercar that he invents that tanks his brother's company, and it's Cybertruck. Well, and also Elon must be a Nazi, is going to tank Tesla. Because they did that recall, the 46,000 cars got recalled.
Every single one. Yeah, and I've seen pictures and videos all over. Yeah, panels are just falling off of these things. There's no frame underneath those panels either. No, it's just a bunch of fucking plastic.
It's an iPhone.
You got me started, but I'm going to try to stop.
Let's not get political tonight.
We don't need to talk about the Cybertruck sucking. Everybody knows.
Let's not get political. Okay, yeah. So Chase has a cut on his fingers matching Freddy's glove slashes from Heather's dream, but he laughs it off like, oh, I just cut myself in the earthquake. Yeah. And Dylan makes a creepy face in his oatmeal. Dylan, I gotta say, I can't tell if this kid is a good actor or not through this whole movie. Sometimes
he's not, but it fits.
Poignant. But sometimes
they made it work really well.
Yes.
Even though he's a bad actor,
I think it works.
4 or 5 or whatever. I'm not going to blame him as a child, but
but I mean, like
they made it good. Like there's this creepiness to him, which is really just his bad acting. But like they were able to direct and film and edit it in such a way that like you think like, is he just like possessed the whole time? Is that why he's
is it
not
Freddy
acting like a
acting
normal
through
person?
him? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
there's also
yeah,
some sort of
I agree that it works. I'm not, and also again, child actors, you're not going to get the best performance out of all of them. You're not going to luck out with Elliot from ET every single time, you know?
Nope.
But this kid clearly like went on to star in, or not star in, but like be the child in a lot of other things.
Mhm.
The creepiness for him does come from like just when he's like blankly staring, you know, but when he's like
got
trying to
really
pretend,
dark
when he's trying to
eyes.
pretend he's in a room that is being shaken by an earthquake, I'm like, okay, maybe don't show this much, because like he's clearly like, hello, like it's like
when
the
he's
Captain Kirk
speaking in
shit.
tongues and screaming were two parts that I was like, you got to stop, kid. It's not working for me.
Okay, if I can speak to him screaming for just a second, because as a relative, as a parent of a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, sometimes kids will just get the inspiration to just scream. She gets really upset. I'm like, kids do that. Like they just scream.
Yeah. I think Jason means more like how he was like doing it, but like, yeah. I don't have any kids, obviously, but like I've worked with, obviously. I can't do it. I've tried
Who
so many
would?
times.
Who would?
Me and all the fellas that I go on dates with, we've been trying. It's just not working.
You can't impregnate a butt.
I just about spit my beer out to the fellas. I don't know why fellas in that context made me laugh.
But I worked
right.
with kids for like half a decade. I know kids like are fucking weird. Like all
weird,
kids are weird. There's, if you meet a kid who's like normal, it's almost
That's weird.
It's almost more unnerving than all the weird
Yeah.
kids. You know, you're like, what's up with this kid? He seems too normal. He's gonna do something.
He wants to go to the Four Seasons. Me.
I do.
I do, father.
I feel like I would enjoy that. Anyway, yeah. I'm just agreeing with Craig, but like there's something, it's I think it's more just like cringiness, where you're like, this just feels like act, like they said like, okay, now scream and make a, and you're just kind of like, I'm watching a movie again. But because of the meta nature of this movie, it's fine. Like it doesn't take you out enough to be like, I'm out. It's more like, I'm concerned for Heather. It's like, why is this kid so fucked?
Well, every other one of this kid's roles seem to be a very like kids say the darndest thing, sort of adjacent, and now he has to do some serious acting.
Yeah.
I've never
like,
seen
back to Kindergarten Cop. His famous line is, "Girls have a penis and boys have a vagina," and that gets big laughs.
I've never seen Pet Sematary though, so I wonder if it's a similar thing in that, because that's a pretty hard.
Oh, he's spoiler alert for Pet Sematary. He's not in it very long.
Yeah, okay. His famous line from that is, "All dogs are boys and all cats are girls."
Yeah, that's perfect. That's the perfect response to that. Heather's also receiving phone calls from a mysterious person, but she's an actor,
like
so
Scream.
It's common.
There's another Scream connection.
Exactly, which is all I could think about. She
it's
tells
clearly Robert Englund doing the voice too, which is like, she's probably like, it's just some guy doing a Freddy voice, which would be unnerving. You know, like imagine your stalker was pretending to be the serial killer that killed you in your first starring role in any movie like a decade after you started. That would be kind of freaky. And I did like the fact that there's like, it's not an implication, but it is sort of an unnerving fact that the driver of the limo is clearly like a fan of the Freddy movies. Like he kind of goes on a miniature rant about it.
Yeah, this guy.
I thought that was going to be more of a theme throughout, where she was going to be trying to figure out who the stalker is and who's doing this, but they really kind of like erase that pretty quickly.
It just becomes a non-thing.
Which is fine.
What's interesting is this harassment on the phone, according to a Legenkamp interview from 1995, it actually mirrors real harassment she faced after doing the Nightmare movies, because of course when you don't have the internet to fucking harass people on Instagram or whatever, you just find their number from a call sheet and call them up and be like, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you, bitch. That's way more horrible, I would say. I actually slap on my hand for even putting that into the universe.
When I'm gonna derail us for a second, but I think it's worth it. Stick with me for a second. Speaking of crank calls before the internet, me and my friend in like grade 9, grade 10 got not arrested, but we got into some legal trouble for making crank calls for whatever reason. we chose a funeral home to crank call
Oh
because
my
I guess they
God.
were reacting to our calls.
Yeah.
But we would just, and it would just be collect calls that we would make, and we would just record different names. Like we would literally say, you have a collect call from Freddy Krueger, bitch. And eventually they caught on to us because we made one call from my house instead of the payphone at the plaza. And we actually got into some trouble for that. I had to go into the
You didn't use
courthouse.
*67 to block the number? What are you, insane?
I was 13 or 14.
I knew.
Yeah,
I
maybe I
knew.
should have.
I also got in trouble with the law for the same reason. The police called the
I had to write
house.
an apology letter. It was my punishment.
My punishment was it was very harsh, and then I was like, I wasn't allowed to leave the house for like the weekend or whatever. I had a bunch of plans, and they all got canceled. No, you're grounded. And I was like, listen, I'd never been grounded before, so like I went to my dad. And I was like, listen, I've never been grounded, right? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, why have I never been grounded? And he's like, well, you've never done anything bad. I'm like, so this is the first time I've ever done anything bad. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, so why are you taking this thing away from me? And he's like, well, because you did something bad, you need to learn a lesson. I'm like, I've learned the lesson. Dad, we called an extermination company in the middle of the night, and we pretended to be a giant cockroach. It's not my fault that they have no sense of humor.
Oh man, that's pretty good. I mean,
extremely
crank
funny,
call is not worth being grounded on. We made dozens over several months.
We
It
also
was
made
a harassment
so
campaign, and we weren't
many.
intending to harass them. They were just so hilarious in their responses that we're like, well, these are the people we're going to keep calling back. Which was
we made a lot
in terms of criminal mastermindery, that was a mistake. And obviously calling from my house was also a mistake.
Yeah, that was fun though. That was a fun
Yeah,
time.
crank calls, they don't happen anymore.
So Chase heads to Palm Springs for work. It appears as though he's building some sort of
Wait,
new
Jason, can I just one more?
Of course.
We also used to go through the phone book, and we used to find people who had famous names. So like Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, and we would call them, and then we would act like we were big fans of their work, which was very funny. And then the way we would do it, like, so a lot of the time somebody would pick up the phone, and it would be like a guy named Michael Jackson's wife or whatever, and then we'd be like, hello, is Mike there? And she'd be like, yeah, who's calling? And we'll be like, oh, it's Doug from work. And they'd be like, okay, Mike, it's Doug from work. And he'd be like, Doug? Like, I don't know who the fucking Doug is. And then I'd be like, hello, is this Michael Jackson? Holy shit, man, I never thought I'd get through to you. This is great.
That's wild, because what I've just realized is the era of podcasts and crank calls. Like, there was, of course, Jerky Boys and Crank Yankers, but nowadays we don't have that, because you can't just get a phone book, really.
Well,
No, the
no one's gonna
equivalent
answer their
is-
phone to a random number.
Yeah,
At least
the
I'm
equivalent is being homophobic and transphobic and racist in a comment section of a chat.
Yeah, I
That's
guess.
the equivalent.
I guess. So
I wouldn't
right.
say so. I think
and it's
what we
less
did was
funny.
in good fun. We weren't being
Yeah.
bigoted or hateful towards anybody.
We were just having a gay old time.
Yep.
That was my other nickname in high school.
A gay old time.
Hey,
wanna
here
go
comes a
time
gay
and
old
fool with
time
a gay
over
old
here.
time?
It's friggin' gay old time over here. I'm sorry. So Chase goes to Palm Springs for a commercial shoot. I like that the split on the wall of the house.
Yeah,
kinda
that
looked
was
like
cool. With the
Freddy's
claw.
claws.
Like it looked like a claw.
Dylan is caught watching Nightmare on Elm Street, and he's just transfixed by it. He screams,
He
and
was
then they get another.
sleepwalking. So like they don't explicitly say that's what he's doing, but it's pretty clear if you have a kid who has ever sleepwalked, like
Yeah.
you know what it looks like, and this kid sleepwalks several times in the movie.
Have you had a kid who's sleepwalked?
My older son has once. I can't remember the details. I just know it's happened.
Because you were sleeping.
I was sleeping.
Yeah. What are you doing in here? I'm trying to sleep. Are you sleepwalking again? I used to sleepwalk all the time for years.
Yeah, same.
When I was a kid, and
Yeah, me too.
my mom tells me stories sometimes, and I'm like, oh, so I was just the kid from Wes Craven's New Nightmare, apparently.
My dad explains it
Grabbing
exactly
knives
the
and
way
shit.
that this kid sleepwalks in this movie, and the way that it's shot, where he's over there. I bring this up in my notes, but they don't just like do a close up on him. They do these really eerie shots of like a full room with just a kid standing over there, and that irks me more than any like the gore or Freddy stuff in this. I'm like, what a weird way to shoot that.
No, it's perfect.
Apparently, I used to like if they would try and wake me up, I would freak out in the same way that he freaks out, like in this. And then I would just accuse them of murdering my real parents and hiding them somewhere. I'm like, you're not my real parents. You killed my parents. They're somewhere in here. Where are they?
When I would sleepwalk, I would go to the bathroom, but I would pee in the cabinets under the sink instead
That's
of
incredible.
Jeez.
Yep.
I went and crawled in with my parents one time, and I have this weird like flash of memory of me peeing their bed, and there was a bucket. They had a water bed, and there was a bucket. I just have this memory of there being a bucket, and
God,
for
a
years I'd be
water
like,
bed.
"Why did you bring a bucket?" And I know now it's probably to like clean the water bed, but
Yep. There's a bucket beside our bed for when the kids are sick and in our bed and have to throw up, because we have learned that lesson a month or two ago. That we got a bunch of vomit in our bed.
Yeah. We need 2 buckets, one for each side, and then a third, maybe a smaller.
That's a good
pail.
idea. Shit, it's on my side. I should get one for my wife's side too.
Yeah, 2 buckets.
and one for you because when you see somebody puking, you puke, and it just becomes chaos.
Yeah, we've talked about the spaghetti incident on this podcast before, or whatever it's called.
Oh, the Guns N' Roses album.
Yeah, the cover album.
It's just a time where somebody was tickling me so hard that I barfed.
Oh, yes.
But it was mostly spaghetti.
My son, I wasn't there as my wife was putting our youngest son to bed the other day, and he was laughing just at a word in a book, the word wolf. But he laughed so hard he puked, and I wish I saw it.
Kids are so stupid.
He'll make you laugh so hard you puke your pants.
It's possible. It happened.
Man.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? A movie, right?
I'm on it. Yeah, Dylan does Scream, and then they get another Freddy call, which is kind of like Scream, and that's when I realized Scream is the perfect movie to cover after we finish this. Julie the babysitter shows up to babysit Dylan, and then the phone rings again. She yells, "Leave us alone, you son of a bitch!" But was it just it's like the company that she's doing a movie for is calling?
No,
to be
it's
like,
the guy
pick them
outside.
up?
The limo
Right, yeah.
driver, who, let's talk about the limo drivers for a sec, because on the phone, he sounds
That's where we're
creepy as
at.
fuck. He
Perfect.
sounds like the crank caller. And in fact, on the phone, now that I think about it, might actually be Robert Englund, like not the same actor who is actually outside.
Oh, like doing the voice of the phone? Yeah.
Yeah, like doing a different voice. No, I called
Luna
it.
Divonair. I'm gonna write that down right now if it's not already
Are
called.
those chef's fingers I see? Oh God.
Those are chef's fingers. Those are chef's fingers. Everybody's talking about it. I'm
Well,
Wes
you know,
Craven
if you
for,
do
I'm
more
Wes
than
Craven for some Hey, did you see this one? Behold an
Oh, I
episode
get
there.
it. It's a play on
Yeah.
words.
Also, I hear if
Put
you
it in
do
your notes.
I hear if you do a Trump impression more than 3 times in one podcast, he appears.
I hate that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it no more times because I've already threatened it twice. Let me just write down Luna Divonair to do Scream.
Put it in your notes. I think I don't know if you're right, but that sounds like something they would do just to like fuck with the whole meta nature of the movie in general. Like, why wouldn't they, right?
It sounded really weird. Like, he sounded so creepy. Like, why is this limo driver so?
He's like, I'm outside. What are you talking about? I'm just waiting for you out here,
I've
lady.
been waiting outside, but he was more like lilty. I've had a beer and a half, lilty about it. Like his voice was going like up and down, like playfully. And then
when he calls back, it's the same. But then you see
but then also Nancy was a piece of shit to him. He was like, I'm waiting outside. She like yelled at him. And so, what do you want from us, you son of a bitch? And he's like, I'm your limo driver. I'm waiting outside. And then she doesn't say anything.
She goes to the door, opens
the phone
it,
down,
screams.
Without saying anything, just goes over to the front door to say, I'm sorry, I'll be right out. And then she stays inside for like 10 more minutes. He calls again.
We're gonna be late, lady.
Like, we need to go, ma'am. And she's like, okay. And then she like does it like get the. I was so.
I agree. She is, but point. She's going through a lot. She just had an earthquake accident.
That's true. You're right. I'm sorry.
But she does go outside and he's like, "Hey, aren't you that woman from Nightmare?" And she's like, "Yeah, whatever."
Yeah,
and then he's like,
"You're that girl, right?"
Right before he closes the door,
he does the good like
at her like. Ugh.
He does the good like the guy from that. And he does like a good like Freddy hand movement. I'm like, I like that. That's what I would do.
I love it. Oh, speaking of iconic, and this is so dumb, but like the scenes in the movie that stick in your head when she gets in the limo and he does that little skip around the hood.
Yeah, like
that is always in my head. I saw that. I was watching because I haven't watched this movie in like 10 years. But like as soon as that like they're outside of the limo, I'm like, oh yeah, he's gonna like put his hand on the hood and skip around the car.
Yeah,
to get
he
in,
does
like,
a good job of creating a character that is not important to the movie. It never shows
Yeah.
up again after the limo leaves. But like, I feel like I know a lot about this guy from just the performance that he gave, which
Yeah.
is, you know, commendable. Good job,
Definitely,
limo
like,
driver
telegraphs.
actor.
Yeah.
I hope that he's not like a weird convicted sex criminal or something now, because
Bro,
I'm like, he
let's,
did a good
I'm
job.
gonna look that up.
Yeah, he had a brutal hairline as well. I'm gonna look
I
like that
under-
guy.
Did he
within
didn't have a
2 years.
ponytail?
I think
did he?
that was by design. They're like, we need to hire somebody who looks slightly kind of like off-putting or whatever.
The actor's first name is Cully, Cully.
When you started that, I was like, oh, it's gonna be something weird. But Cully's not that weird. If it was Cummy, I'd be like, yep, that tracks.
He's in a lot of video games. Star
Okay.
Wars Battlefront,
yeah.
Mafia 3.
Oh, you've been
Go
playing
on.
with Cully this whole time, Steve.
Yeah.
You've experienced Cully in his full form.
In Battlefront Elite Squadron, he's General Ram Kota, and also in The Force Unleashed, same character.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm not gonna read his whole thing. He is in a bunch of movies too. He's in
Ram Kota is like
no,
he's a I think he's a Jedi, isn't he? Ram Kota?
I don't know. You're the Star Wars
I
guy.
believe he is. Let's find out.
what if
Let's-
Ram Kota was Freddy Krueger coming up this October on Darth Theorist?
Yeah, Ram Kota is a Jedi who survived Order 66 and ended up helping Galen Merrick, also known as Starkiller, turn to the light side during the Force Unleashed video games. And I know his voice well, and that's interesting to me
Nice.
because I've done his
Also-
voice in a Star Wars video.
Speaking of Star Wars and this guy, he's also in Star Trek First Contact as Vulcan. So high profile character there. But I
He's
love
even,
seeing when an actor is in both Star Wars and Oh shit, he was in Star Trek Voyager an episode as well.
It's crazy.
So I
though,
love
but
that.
if
I
you-
love when actors are in both Star Wars and
Yeah.
Star Trek.
I think if
love
you're
that.
like a sort of like a voice actor, a day player in Hollywood, you 99% of the time have been in some sort of Star Trek project at some point. You know, like you were in something.
Yeah, your face is a bit ugly, but we'll stick some pointy ears
Yeah.
on you.
We
and
can
put
give
a
you a
bunch of yellow
wig,
on your
give you
face and-
some weird wrinkles on your forehead, and bada bing, bada boom, you're part of the fucking Federation, baby.
Yeah, act with your voice, not with your face.
That's what they're saying to me since college.
That's all of what you just said.
I
Is what they
didn't
called
mean
me in
you.
high school.
You can act with your face, Steven. I just mean the limo driver.
So let's talk about the talk show appearance. Heather appears on a talk show promoting Nightmare on Elm Street. Robert Englund, who's just there, he joins and he comes out dressed like Freddy. Well,
Well,
we're
let's
already
go
starting to
spade a
see
spade. He's not
Heather.
just there. They clearly planned this. They were like, "Well, we're gonna promote this new
Yeah.
movie coming out."
It's like a
I didn't
gag
mean
or
it like
whatever.
that. I meant that he's there, which is an insane thing because he's playing himself in this movie, playing Freddy outside of the movie franchise.
Yeah,
but
Englund
what I
was
wanted
doing
to
a lot of
point
video.
out is that Heather is already starting to crack a little bit. We're like 30 minutes into the movie, and Heather's already like, I recognize all of what's happening to me from when I was in this movie. Also, do you guys have any theories on like what her life has been like in this 10 years? Because it seems like it's been hell.
No, it doesn't
Like her
seem
real
it's been
life?
hell.
The,
Seems like it's been nice. She's had a nice life. What are you
the
talking
film
about?
character's life or the real Heather Langenkamp's life
The real Heather in the film, Legging Camp.
in the film.
What it
in the
seems like to me is that she was probably working on a project where she met a very nice special effects man on
Mhm.
set working on
By the way,
something.
her real life husband is a special effects guy. Not
yeah,
his face.
wasn't she
yeah, he was-
also? Yeah, wasn't she also in like one of the new Star Treks or something because of it? Like she just like did it for fun because he worked on.
let's take a look.
This might be troll bait or something, but like I feel like I've heard that at some point.
She was in the third J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie.
And because
Oh,
her
wow.
husband is like the main.
So the
special-
most recent
Yeah.
movie, if you don't count Section 31, which I don't think people do.
which I think is because her husband was like the main special effects guy on the project, right? Like
Oh.
that she just did it because of that. But anyway, yeah. So this again is sort of like it's Wes Craven's writing the script, but he's also like writing real life stuff where he's like, oh, you're married to the special. This is such an interesting like, what if he's working on the thing in secret and like, the glove, but he doesn't want to tell you until you agree to do the movie and blah blah blah. But for me, it seems like her life is pretty good and normal up until the calls start. That's when she
Like
starts freaking
okay.
out.
But
It's
it
not
seemed
like
like
she's
the calls were happening like before the film, because she was already like, those calls are happening. They're still happening.
no. She
and then-
literally says exactly when they start, and it's when Wes is starting to write the script.
Okay.
There's a moment in the movie where they talk about that. And she says like she's been doing TV, and she's like, I like the TV schedule because it gives me a lot more time to be with my kids. I don't have to travel to a location in Iowa to film for 4 months and not be able to see my child, and I can work just from the studio, which is within the city, and I can just go do that. So it seems like she's like liking it, but then the resurgence of the new nightmare, if you will, is that she's being haunted, and so is everybody else. So I would say my theory is that like she's enjoying her life and having a nice life with her family and child. But this incident within this movie is what's derailing it, and the story begins several weeks or months after her life is starting to become unhinged.
Yeah, and the earthquakes start happening, and then the dreams
cracking.
start happening. Yeah, the guy who's interviewing her does that thing like, "Is Freddy really dead?" Which I was like,
could he come back? What you don't your friends want him? Remember like Jiminy Glick or whatever?
Yeah.
He's doing the interview. Like,
And it's also funny too because like there's so many people in the audience, like kids dressed like Freddy during all of this too, which I thought was really off-putting.
Okay, well, you guys are a little bit younger than me. That was a thing. Like, Freddy was a kid's character in the 80s, despite them all being rated R movies. Like, all the kids knew who Freddy was. Like she says in the movie, like
She says Santa Claus and King Kong.
Like, that's not a joke. That's what the 80s was like. Everybody knew who Freddy was.
When I was watching that with Danny, we kept the list going. It's like Santa Claus or King Kong, and then I was like, or Michael Jackson.
Peter or Peter Pan. Yours is funnier. Michael Jackson's way funnier than Peter Pan.
I agree. We both.
Or Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Robert comes out dressed like Freddy. She kind of freaks out over that. There's the funky version of Freddy's theme. So then it cuts to like Robert looks like a big time like actor. Like he's kind of like, I got places to be, people. But they're buddies, they're friends. They've remained friends this whole time, which I thought was really fun. And someone from New Line Cinema calls Heather, and she heads over to New Line Cinema. So we're over into the New Line Cinema element.
Yeah, Robert Shea. That's when she meets up with Robert Shea, right?
Yeah,
He's excited about the new project.
I do like Robert Englund's look here, where he's wearing like kind of like a nice day suit, like a casual suit, but it looks like airy and comfortable, and he's got those cool sort of like violet tinted shades, the circular rimmed shades. He just looks very comfortable in his own skin, which I'm like, I like this.
Now, do you think, and I guess this goes for like everyone in the movie, but I guess primarily Heather and Robert. Do you think that's how Robert is in real life, or do you think they dress him up, or were they like dress how you dress in real life?
I think it's all turned up to 11 person.
I have met Robert Englund in real life.
What?
And just once, and it was at I think it was a fan expo, and it was when I was like 21, so like a very long time ago.
And he looked exactly like he did in this movie.
He looked close enough that it's believable. He was wearing more comfortable clothing than a suit, but he was also very nice, and he had sort of the demeanor that he has here, where he's like a single hand in the pocket, walking around, talking casually, standing tall with confidence. But the way I met him was so weird. Like I didn't go into a line. I don't, when I go to those, I don't stand in line to meet people because I'm like, this is so weird and masturbatory, and I don't actually want to meet anybody that badly that I'm going to pay you $50 to like talk to you for 2 seconds so you can sign something.
I did it once, but it's not a story worth retelling.
I don't care enough about anybody. It's like, they are not the character. If I could meet the real character, sure. If I could meet Freddy Krueger for 5 minutes, sure, I'd pay $50.
You probably wouldn't want to do that. I advise.
Even if I had the assurance that he wasn't going to stab me to death.
Yeah.
Feel my
no, I'll tell. It's not a story, but it was Billy Corgan that I went to a book signing and waited in line to have his poetry book signed.
So my experience was I was in the FanX, and like FanX is like always cramped, smells, it's just sweaty and bullshit. It's like too hot a lot of the time.
Yeah, so at least one person's maybe pissed themselves.
Yeah, often it takes place in the middle of August in the convention center that's not properly air conditioned or whatever.
Everyone's playing.
Yeah, and there's like 20,000 people in there. So and then also the food is like $1 million too expensive. So you're like, fuck, I'm so hungry and thirsty, but we still have to be here for 4 more hours. I guess I'll go buy a $25 slice of pizza and eat it as far away from this area that is designated for food as possible. And so I bought a slice of pizza, me and my 2 friends, and we went into like this, what we thought was like a dead hallway, like no one's going to go here. And it turns out it was supposed to be like cordoned off. No one was supposed to be in there. And some guy came up and he's like, hey, you guys can't be in here. And we're like, what do you mean? And they're like, you can't sit here. And we're just sitting on the floor with our feet out, like, just like sitting on the ground.
As you do.
And we're like, okay, well, we're almost done. We'll leave in a couple seconds. Can we just sit here for a few more minutes and we'll leave? And the guy was like, okay, but I'm going to go down there and I'm going to come back. And if you're still here, like, I will kick you out of the building. We like, okay, we'll leave. We won't be here by the time you return, sir. And the guy left. And then I'm eating my pizza. And then somebody kicks my feet and does like the most exaggerated, like pretends to trip over my legs and like almost pretends to break his neck and turns around. He's like, what are you doing here? And it's fucking Robert Englund. I'm like, oh,
awesome.
Yeah.
Now, how wide was this hallway in relativity to your legs? Were you taking up?
No, he did it on purpose. Like he was just doing it for fun. And like he could obviously so much gate that he could have went all the way around. He didn't even have to. Yeah. Anyway, it was just a funny get. And turns out he's a very nice and funny person. He talked to us for like 2 minutes, and then we were like, all right, don't haunt us in our dreams. Or I can't remember what I said. I was 21. I was trying to make a joke. He was good. He was nice. He was very nice.
Yeah, you hit those moments and you try to be funny and you never are.
And then you think about it for 30 years and you're like, I could have said so much funnier than that. Jeez.
Yeah, all I did when I met Billy Corgan was I told him it was an honor to meet him. I didn't have any prepared statement or anything. I mean, Billy Corgan.
That's I made a short of us talking about me meeting Bruce McCullough and you not wanting to actually meet him, and it was a similar thing.
No, I did want to meet him. I was just so worried I would say the wrong thing. I couldn't go up to him. I was like, I don't know.
I read the room when I met him, and it was like Tiff, and he just was like looking at his phone, and I was like, big fan, bye. And I walked away before I could even get disheartened by the whole situation.
Smart.
I weirdly had a similar thing with Anthony Daniels, the guy who played C-3PO in Star Wars.
Yeah,
I saw him. He had no line, and like he was just kind of like, "Oh, I have to go now. Really, I can't take any more requests for photos." And I was like, "Oh, he's just C-3PO in real life."
Yeah,
this is crazy. And I couldn't go talk to him because I'm like, I can't go talk to actual C-3PO. This is too weird.
So,
I
said
I didn't.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Heather meets real life New Line execs who propose a new Freddy movie inspired by Wes's nightmares. Bob Shea, real life New Line head, appears as himself. They pitch Evil Never Dies, teasing that Freddy isn't truly gone. Heather refuses the project. And fun fact, according to Cinefantastique circa 1994, this meta concept mirrors how New Line Cinema begged Craven to return to the franchise. So is that sort of what happened here also, where he's like, New Line is like, please make another one, and he's like, only if I can do it the way I want to do it from my own nightmares.
Cash cow. I'm sure they never wanted to stop making Freddy movies.
Please hit the pinata, please.
I think that
we haven't, Jason. You haven't gone past the part where the first death happens, right? Where the husband dies in the truck.
No, because they're not even through the first day yet. This is like once she leaves this meeting with Shay. That's when
that night.
Dylan has a fucking episode, as she calls it. He's freaking out. He's fucking losing his shit.
He's freaking out, man.
He's freaking out. But we talked about this scene briefly during our director talk or our production talk, but like, it is weird. He says evil never dies, and that's like kind of like isn't that more like a Michael Myers thing?
That
I
is
feel
literally
yeah.
the Michael Myers
Yeah.
tagline.
I think
Oh,
that
do
like
you guys
that's
think that's like an homage? It's a little wink.
maybe it is, but like
There,
I also
there's a
feel like they
couple
say
of
that
those.
about
'Cause
Chucky as well. I feel like that's
Yeah.
just like a thing that they say about all of them. You know?
There is
They
also
all
like
are-
a psycho shriek in this movie. I think that if we dug a little bit deeper, we'd probably find a lot more homage.
there's
stuff
some
going
great
on.
ambient sound effects going on in this movie. I was
Yeah.
watching it with headphones on and I was like, this movie's got good sound editing. Especially
Now, okay, since you're bringing the sound up, my sound was fucking terrible. I don't know if it's the copy.
unfortunate.
I have it on DVD, but I did download it because I didn't want to dig out a DVD player to play it. Sue me,
Right.
but whatever.
That's fine.
I think if you
downloaded-
already own it, it's fine. We're not.
It's
Yeah,
like
that's why I
ROMs. You can download a ROM for a video game if you own
Exactly.
the original copy legally.
My sound was fucked. I had to turn on the night mode on my TV's audio because dialogue was super quiet and everything else was super loud. I was like fucking with the volume up and down every time between scenes. So I had to, so I forget why I brought this up. You mentioned sound.
I
I
was
was going to
just
say
saying
you
that
have a
there's some good-
PlayStation, but you.
Oh, you said it was great. Yeah,
I
great
was saying it was
audio.
good, and you were like, "It's
Yeah,
bad."
for me it wasn't.
Me.
Right? At least it was probably like, these rips that it was probably like a surround sound mix that was down mixed incorrectly to stereo or something, or maybe
Yeah,
my
and
TV
also like
didn't
sometimes you
know,
can
so I sound
fuck with
properly.
your TV settings, so it doesn't think you have a surround sound system, and so it just comes out all as flat. But
Yeah,
that's
if
also-
I watched it on like my main, like I watched it in bed. If I watched it on my main TV where I actually have like a proper sound bar and stuff, it probably would have sounded great.
It might have sounded better.
But in my experience of the movie, good sounds coming at all points in the movie. Every time there's a little bit of mystery happening, every time there's a little bit of intrigue, you'll sometimes hear like a shing, like something like a metal dragging across ceramic or something in the background, and like it's very subtle, but it's fucking good.
The rip that I had was a 4K copy. It was really good. But I will say, for the first hour, when we watched Cult of Friday the 13th last week for the show, we watched it with Cass in person. And then when the movie was over, Steve was like, "I just want to show you the opening to New Nightmare." And we watched, and we ended up watching about 40 minutes. So I was like, you know what? I can't be watching these movies over and over. I watched the first 40 minutes of this movie in 1.5x speed. So I didn't really notice the sound, but then I turned that off for the rest of the movie, and the sound quality I listened to also on headphones.
I wouldn't
I
have
know that
shown you
hurts
the
you.
first 40 minutes if I knew you were going to do that, Jason. You
Well, I
sick
wouldn't have.
twisted fuck.
These movies I especially watch like locked in, and this movie has really good sound design. It's a feast for all of your senses, even though it's from 1994. It's such a good movie. The kid like loves dinosaurs, which were right smack dab in the
Yeah,
lexicon,
what was the
you know?
dinosaur's name? I didn't write it down.
Rex.
Rex. What got
It's one
me,
of those-
what took me out of it was, I think it was when he was in the hospital later, and he wakes up from a nightmare or from something scary, and he cries for Rex instead of his mom.
Yeah.
Every kid is calling for their mom first, no matter what. I found.
But
that funny.
the
Like,
thing
call
is
for
that Rex
animal.
is the only one that can protect him. We've established this. He
Says-
keeps
yeah, and I get it. Like I get what they were trying to do, but I'm like, that is, as a parent, that is fucking unrealistic. That
Yeah,
kid
but
is
do you Craigie Kruger believe that any of your children have actually been protected from a burnt demon with a giant knife club coming from out of their floor by their
I've
stuffed
never
animal?
really thought about it.
I actually
Well,
thought for a
no.
minute watching this that Freddy Krueger was going to have a weird CGI battle with a dinosaur, which I thought would have been not out of
that would've been
place
I bet
in a
that's something
dreamscape.
I
seen or
think
on the alternate script.
That would have been really cool, but you know what would have been even cooler, in my opinion, is when they go down into that hell world at the end. If there was just a giant corpse of like a huge T-Rex, like
would've been
he
cool,
actually,
too.
like he had to fight like a crazy dream.
That
T-Rex.
Spielberg like lent him from the Jurassic Park set. Like, just take this Velociraptor.
Yeah, so like we, the audience, know that he fought Rex, but they're not putting in the budget to show that.
Yeah, but like just the fact that we know that he did do it and killed him is like would be pretty cool.
Yeah, even in the background, so even only like 5% of viewers like even notice it.
Yeah,
would have been great.
Like the crate dragon bones in Star Wars or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, but yeah, because the fact that he's the Guardian is like really cool. in my
Yeah.
imagination. Like, you know, when you're a kid, you see and hear shit all the time. I don't know if, like, I told you guys I was a sleepwalker. Like, I used to see E.T. in my room and have full conversations with them, and I had weird perverted old people looking at me through like the slat in my door of my my closet and things that I remember very vividly that I now know were not real. It was just my imagination. But like, you know, imagining a knife-handed man fighting a dinosaur, I wish I was watching that instead of just being terrified by people in my room.
Yeah,
The
fair.
heck.
That does actually bring us to exactly what we're talking about here. When she gets home, she finds Dylan having a nightmare, and he's freaking out, and he's like speaking in tongues, and the dinosaur has claw marks on it, and also Dylan says that basically the dinosaur protects him against the scary old man that lives down there underneath the blankets, which is, it's very eerie to hear that. When I was a kid, I was afraid of all kinds of nonsense, paranormal bullshit like ghosts.
I was scared of the wind.
I was afraid of being abducted by UFOs for a huge portion of my life because of In Search of and
listen, that's a very legitimate fear. Okay, there's nothing wrong with being scared of that, and if you're still scared of that, that's fine too.
I'm not afraid of the dark, and I don't believe in ghosts and that all that stuff. But when I go to my dad's, he lives in
I'm afraid of my dad.
I'm afraid of my dad. No, he lives in a farmhouse in like surrounded by farmland, and when I'm there, I just feel like I'm being watched by a
I get that, because
entity.
when you're in that like open, like there's no other buildings around you kind of things, like you're exposed from all angles. Like that to me is terrifying. The thought of being in a farmhouse with nothing, like no trees or buildings or whatever around me, that is terrifying to me. That freaks me the fuck out.
This is incredible. Thanks, Tim. I think there's an episode called that, probably. It's one of the band episodes.
Are you afraid of my dad?
Right. So I also wanted to say that the house that they live in here reminded me a lot of the house in Jurassic Park 2. Obviously, that movie. It's just that pool in the back. You know, when they get back to the city when the T-Rex is rampaging.
I was like, what? I'm like,
you're acting like we've all seen Jurassic Park. I mean, I've seen it, but have you guys done it on the podcast? Is this something you guys have watched recently?
No,
we haven't. Maybe
I've just watched that movie a lot of times.
I mean, listen, technically, if we were going by technicality, the Jurassic Park / World movies could potentially be a grimoire chapter, and I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
What do you mean at this point?
Well, no, I mean not at this point in the podcast. I mean at this point in the franchise, because now there's like 5, 7 of them.
Well, I just mean because it's a horror movie franchise. It technically is a horror movie franchise and always has been.
It's, I think plot wise, it's horror, but they filmed it like an action adventure.
Yeah, and it's
Of
a little
course,
bit sci-fi
but
too.
It's
But I
a
agree with
horror
Steve, for sure.
story.
It's a horror. Jurassic Park is a horror movie, the first one especially. But then they start to mess with the genre, I think.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park 3 is like it feels like an action adventure more than the first one.
Jurassic Park 3 feels like I tripped and yawned at the same time, and I accidentally ate a bunch of shit, or what do they call them? Earth cakes.
Yeah,
I know
a bunch of earth cakes fell in your mouth.
No recollection of it.
It's actually
not
the
good.
worst.
I've
It's
watched
so
it,
bad.
I'm sure.
But it's also got moments that I'm like, that's good. But the majority, I'm like laughing my ass off at how crazy the decision-making process must have been to do like.
Yeah. Speaking of crazy decisions and the third movie in the franchise, never watched RoboCop 3. Don't.
Yeah,
I'm going to.
Let's make it PG-13.
I'm going to, and you can't stop me.
It's going to be PG.
I mean, just don't say we didn't warn you, Jason.
Yeah, that's what you told me about. That's what you told me about Darkman 2. That's what you told me about most of the Hellraiser movies, and I still have them all up here. It's bad.
Yeah,
here now. It's bad.
But you understand why I warned you.
Yeah, you get it. Yeah.
Every time Steve and Cam are like, because we have a group chat, and I basically just tell them what movies I'm watching, and they're like, "You don't need to."
Yeah.
I'm like, "But my completionist itch is itching me."
You got to get that platinum trophy.
One day your completionist itch is going to short out, and you're going to actively try to not watch things anymore.
And I'll actually
that might
finally
fuck with you. Yeah, you're like, I can't watch.
I hope so. Or it'll short circuit the other way, and you'll need to watch every movie ever made ever.
Yeah,
That's
You're
where
like-
I am now.
you're like,
When
now
I
I
get
also
to
need to watch
1,000 movies,
I need to watch every television show. Because are you going to watch the entire RoboCop TV series, the one season?
Don't
No.
do not. I tried.
no.
Do
I used
not.
to watch
Worse
that
than
on
Robocop 3.
Showcase when I was a kid, and my dad loved it. And I was like, this is
How?
objectively
It's
not
so
good.
fucking bad. If you're not a
Yeah.
9-year-old child, what business do you have watching that show?
It's like they made a whole
downloaded-
TV
how to
show out of that
download-
scene in RoboCop 1. It's like they made a whole TV show of that scene in RoboCop 1 where he's walking through the house.
Yep.
And he's having all the weird like short-out memories of his wife. That's what the whole show is like.
Such a terrible fucking show.
There's a lot of parts in the video game that's like that too, where he's like, and she's like, Robo husband, come ravage me in the bed. And he's like,
I got the video game because
it's
I
against
fucking
the
love RoboCop,
law.
but I can't play a first-person shooter where you're walking around in slow motion. Like it's such a boring game to me.
Have you played it?
I have. It looks great. It just
It's
let me
fucking
run.
good. It's
Let me
good.
run in a first-person shooter. I need to run. I got
You
bored of
can
it.
run, bro. You level up to the point you can run. Like,
Oh,
he's
I
not
didn't
gonna just be walking the whole
Right.
time.
All right, we're here to talk about Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Okay.
Welcome to the podcast.
I know, but you
folks.
can't make a
So-
sweeping statement like that. without responding
Right here
to
on Hey Did You See This One, lots of us make sweeping statements all the time, and it's usually me. And,
they're usually
thank
wrong.
you. Yeah. Well, I'm doing better.
For
Listen,
anyone listening,
Chase-
just to be clear, watch Hellraisers 1, 2, and 3, and then stop. You're
and
good.
maybe 4. 4
Maybe
can
4
sneak
is-
in there, but
and
after
beyond
that,
there,
don't
it's-
waste your time.
It's
And
below
Hellraiser,
straight to DVD quality.
22. I mean, the year 22.
Yeah, Hellraiser. I
It's
guess
good.
10.
It's good. It's good.
Listen,
I think it's
we
actually
cut over
more
to-
like 13, to be honest. It's like the 13th one.
There's a lot of them.
There was 2 in 1 year at one point. 2 straight
Yeah.
to DVD Hellraisers, and I watched both of them, and they were worse than the previous.
And they were made by different studios, and Doug Bradley was
Yeah.
like, "Are you telling me I have to make 2?"
I gotta go. Yeah,
I think one of them is the one Doug Bradley isn't even in.
it would have to be. They were
Next-
making them both
next
at the same
guy.
time.
Yeah. Anyway,
So,
save
we
your
cut over
tears. It's a waste of good suffering. That's
We
a
cut
lot.
our the pain as far as the eye can see, or whatever. We cut over to Chase. He's taking a drive. It's a classic Freddy scene of somebody driving a car and trying
Where
their
they cut
hardest
to his crotch a lot.
not to fall asleep. Yeah, he's
Listen,
and
man,
they do a really
the
cool
amount of
thing where the
tits
claw
and
comes up.
asses that I gotta watch in these horror movies. I'm okay with doing a crotch shot of a dude.
One
every
bulge.
once
Oh,
in
I'm
a
not
while.
complaining. I just thought it was funny. Like the camera keeps just like cutting to his dick.
Yeah,
and the
I
first
was
time
like,
they do it,
more,
you know,
more.
like spoiler alert, like so they cut to his crotch because Freddy's glove, like I think happens in the fourth one. Freddy's glove comes out of the upholstery in the seat in the car to like
Yes.
whatever, fuck with him. But what the first time it cuts to his dick, there's no context. It just cuts
Yeah.
to his fucking crotch.
Well, we know. We're like, why are you showing us this?
But for
Yeah,
one
like,
second,
there's
I'm
gonna be
like,
a claw.
why is there what?
It'd be
I thought
funny
it was
if-
funny. I'm sorry. I thought it was hilarious that they just cut to a dick and they just let it hang there for like half a second too long before Freddy's glove comes out of the seat, in my opinion.
I think that they didn't leave it a half a second long enough.
Fair. That's fair.
I was like, is that his ball? The dick in outline? I'm trying to figure out where the balls and the
Yeah,
penis
where's the
separate.
wiener and where's the bean?
Oh, there was something I forgot to mention that kind of comes to fruition at the end.
It's
Heather
about wiener and
reads.
bean.
Well, no, it's Heather reads Dylan, Hansel, and Gretel like every night. He knows all the
Oh
words,
yeah.
but he like loves this story. And I also kind of realized this story kind of plays as kind of a Hansel and Gretel story with the two of them kind of like going to Freddy's house.
Jason,
and then they have
are
to
you-
escape.
He literally leaves a breadcrumb trail of sleeping pills to a point
Sleeping
to
pills.
the hell, and then
It's
he
just
pushes
super
it up
fucking
and-
dangerous, and she's
Yeah.
just eating all of
This is
them.
not. Don't act like this is like. Did you notice? Like this is the movie. The whole like latter half of the movie is just the telling of Hansel and Gretel. Come on, man.
That's right. This is why it's a conversation how to tell Jason why he's an idiot. Parody.
Oh.
Sorry. Okay.
There's no more attacking Jason.
I'm
But yeah, I
Anyway,
thought that-
only
that's
going
something
to
I
attack
will
him in
talk
his
about
dreams
because
from now on. That's
Attack on Titan.
Attack on Titan's fucking great.
You guys want to do a podcast about Attack on Titan? I can find
No,
some
not
weebs
really. I don't think I
and
would do it
otakus
justice.
to watch it.
You know, Freddy
yeah.
kind of looks like one of the Attack on Titan monsters.
He does. I bet if he
No.
was nude and
No,
giant,
one of the Titans looks like Freddy.
That's actually more accurate. You're right.
Yeah.
That's like the old like Dune stole from Star Wars. No. Star Wars
No,
just
no. Hold on a
recreated
second.
Dune. In a more
everything stole
palatable
from
way.
Dune.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dune is the Lord of the Rings of sci-fi.
I didn't want to tell you guys this, but there's a passage in Dune that says, Paul Atreides, you will be the first to create earth cakes. And I stole earth cakes from Dune.
Okay, I need to get
Poop
this
without
out. I'm gonna
rhythm.
lose my mind.
Okay.
Chase is humming to himself or singing to himself "Losing My Religion" by REM. Freddy's glove
Yeah, he was
comes
really
up
into that
through
song.
the seat.
Which I guess was
And
a
he-
big hit at the time, so that makes sense.
But that song
was-
wasn't playing on the radio, right? He just started singing that.
He was just singing it because he was trying to
That's-
keep himself awake.
That's so weird.
I guarantee you bring up a good point. I guarantee it was meant to be playing on the radio, and he was singing along, and they were like, "It works better if we cut out," or they didn't get the licensing.
It's probably the licensing, but like,
Yeah,
why?
I guarantee it was
Maybe-
supposed to be playing on the radio.
Maybe REM was like, we fucking hate movies about dreams. It's like, what?
Well, I mean, REM strikes me as one of those bands like Led Zeppelin, where they're just like, you better have a really fucking good reason to let us put your song.
It's cost $25 million to use the song in perpetuity, and also we hate
Yeah.
movies. Yeah,
I'm going to go on another bit of a tangent. I'm going to talk
Michael
about The Crow
Stipe
for a second.
seems
The Crow
humorless.
soundtrack.
Stop talking at the same time, please.
Sorry.
Please.
The Crow soundtrack. They wanted to get Dead Souls by Joy Division. It cost them less money to have Nine Inch Nails re-record the song than to pay Joy Division for it.
Yeah, if you do covers, it's a lot cheaper. But getting another band to do a cover is that's wild. But
Nine Inch Nails did the cover for that soundtrack because it would have been more expensive.
I wonder if that's the case for because didn't Nine Inch Nails do a cover of a Led Zeppelin song for the girl with the dragon tattoo at the beginning as well? I wonder if that.
Oh, I don't know, but I got to look that up and hear it if that's true.
It might not be Led.
What song?
It was come from the land of the ice and snow.
Yeah, that's Zeppelin. That's Black Dog?
Yeah,
No,
there's a cover of that.
Immigrant song.
Yeah, immigrant song. There's a cover of that song at the beginning of that movie, and it's pretty good. But I wonder if that's the case. If they're like, it'll just be way easier for us to get another band who we can pay. Okay, you have the answer. Go
Hold
ahead.
on, not just Nine Inch Nails. Karen O from the Yeah Yeah Yeahs is also in that cover.
Cool.
I got to hear that. I'm not going to play it right now. You're welcome.
It's
But
good.
you.
It's a good
I
version
have
of
to hear that. That's fucking crazy.
it. Also, if you're gonna look it up, you should watch the whole movie because that movie's pretty dope.
I should. I've been meaning to. I just haven't got around to it.
You have to have Disney money to actually use that song, which you would think Robert Plant would be like, no, don't put my beloved song in a Marvel movie, but that song is fully in Love and Thunder or in Ragnarok, Thor Ragnarok.
Fun fact.
I think Zeppelin loosened their grip on their catalog for a while. I think School of Rock was the first movie that had a Zeppelin song in it, and it was a fucking struggle from what I heard.
I don't think it was
listened
the
to audio
first movie
commentary.
to have one, but I think it was the first movie where they like did it without making it almost impossible for it to happen. But like,
Also, I'm going to keep going on Led Zeppelin movies. Wayne's World. So famously, I think we probably all know that like when he goes to play Stairway in the guitar shop, he's not playing Stairway. It's these weird random notes. And then the guy points to the sign that says no Stairway. In the theater, Stairway was in it. And now the new release that just came out of Wayne's World, if you get it, they've restored the actual Stairway to the movie.
yeah, I've heard of this. Yeah.
He does play another song that's a real song, but you're right. That I saw that on a Culture Brain video on TikTok recently.
Yeah,
about
but
it.
it's like the original audio is like the actual guitar from the scene, like on set recording, and then there's like what they dubbed in after, which is like clearly different. My joke was going to be that Robert Plant is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that is because Groot's actual name is Robert Plant. But no good, no good, no good.
I like it. I give that a B+.
B+, okay.
Yeah, B+,
It
pretty
probably
good.
would have been better in the moment when I was trying to say it, but we kept yelling over each other.
Yeah,
Like,
you had to explain it.
can I get this Robert Plant joke out, please?
It's pretty good.
All right.
Because Groot is a plant, Jason.
What?
Yeah, he is like of
What
the
a treat.
earth.
He's an earth puck.
And
or
Robert
whatever.
Plant's name
Cake,
has
cake,
plant
it's
in
earth
it.
cakes.
He's an earthquake. Anyway, Chase gets clawed up and crashes. Dylan wakes up Heather. Rex was fighting, I guess. The police show up, and Dylan is just standing over there again. I wrote because when the police are at the door, they just cut to fucking. It's cut to Dylan, and he's just like.
We both, me and Danny both like burst out laughing when they're like, "I'm afraid it's worse than that, ma'am."
I love this. I love her though. She's so optimistic. Is he hurt?
Yeah.
It's at your fucking door.
Yeah. If he was hurt, we would have
dead?
called
And
you.
they're like, they're like, how do you know? And they're like, well, we found his ID. Like,
yeah, it's pretty easy to tell when someone's dead, ma'am.
His body's fully intact.
But like,
He had no pulse.
Claw
then it
mark on
cuts
his chest.
to Dylan, and he just kind of does this, like, and like turns and like walks out of the room. And me and Danny both went like, did he just roll his eyes? Like this kid just like rolled his.
Or
like,
it's such a common occurrence to have the police come and inform them about dead people that he's like this again.
Oh yeah.
I know the routine. I'll go to the living room. You can talk about dead people.
So Heather wants to see the body for herself. She goes to the hospital morgue where there are people laughing and screaming and crying. There was a note.
Oh my god, it's like an insane asylum down in the basement of that hospital. I doubt real.
I've seen this movie like a few times, and I've never watched it with headphones on before. And I'm listening, and I'm like, oh, I always thought it was somebody laughing, but it's like it's supposed to be somebody deep in the basement of this place, also seeing their loved one, and they're like they're like lamenting
crying.
But yeah, like I've seen it so many times, and I've always been like, why is somebody cackling down here? Like, what the fuck is going on?
It does,
it's just a bad mix, I think, is like it feels like an insane asylum where you're like, it's just a morgue. Why is there someone like but the answer is it's just supposed to be someone also freaking out, preparing her for seeing her dead husband. But then also nothing really prepares you for walking down a hallway that just has a bunch of dead bodies stored in the hallways. Like that's why
and
are
it's
they
a
there?
little bit reminiscent of like Freddy's weird like iron hallways in the first movie too.
Yeah, a lot of those
kind of evokes.
Yeah,
which is hallways where he can scrape his fingernails down there.
Yeah. He loves to be able to make sparks.
Like, bitch.
Yeah.
He even tries that at one point, but it's just like a chalk on just the fingernails on chalk moment, which we'll get to. The doctor shows the claw marks. She pukes. Cut to the funeral. We get another earthquake. She falls.
Did anybody
forward.
expect his body to be way, way worse? I was like, it's going to be half a body or something crazy, right?
Well, considering when she walks in, there's a person completely flayed open that they're working on.
Yeah, which is way worse. I expected him to be in pieces.
Yeah,
and the police were all like, "It was a pretty bad wreck, ma'am," but he doesn't look that bad.
Well, my initial thought when she walks in and sees the person open, it's like that's him. But no, like he's like, come with me. And when they show him,
no, it's the guy who's not as bad as him. We know we told you he was the worst thing we've ever seen, but it's like a 4 out of 10.
The doctor pulls the like blanket down a little bit, and it just like kind of reveals, and then she's like, "I need to see." Yeah, and then he's got like full chop marks down his chest, and they're not even that bad.
I mean, I think it would have been better if it was like way, way worse, and then the claw marks should have been there, and then maybe his whole bottom half is gone or something. Like it should have been
like plot wise, that maybe should have been the goriest scene in the movie.
Yeah, but in this movie, that the guy, she's like, it looks like he was clawed, and he's like, yeah, and I'm like the way he says yeah, I'm like I expected him to be like, listen, lady. Everybody that comes in here all scraped up looks like they got clawed. It's just normal, all right? That's what you look like when you're dead. You look like you.
That's what we do here at the morgue.
I've never seen a dead, eviscerated body before.
Yeah. But it was too tame. I think is what we're all kind of saying. But
absolutely. But at the funeral, there's another earthquake. She falls forward and bops her head, and then she gets sent into she's like knocked out. So she sees Dylan being pulled into the coffin. The coffin gets shaken into the ground, and then what's interesting is when Dylan gets pulled, we see Freddy for the first time pulling him
we haven't seen
into
his face yet. This is the first
nightmare realm.
And I don't know. I think this is probably the weakest moment in the movie for me because it
The
doesn't
special
really,
effects aren't great.
they're not great. It doesn't really do much. It's also sort of predictable in a way where I'm like,
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
gonna fall in, and
This was the first point in the movie where it's like, oh, there's a cliche. Like
Yeah.
there's the funeral scene that you expect.
the
I'm
best
pretty
part
sure like Nightmare on Elm Street 4, which again I was on your episode for that. Like the funeral scene, maybe that, you know what? Maybe that was a callback to that funeral scene.
Maybe,
Because
yeah.
I think in 4 there was a scene that was very similar to this.
But it doesn't really do. I think the most effective part in it is when the body lands on her and like the blood is coming out of his eyes and his nose and his mouth, and he's like, "Stay with me." And I'm like, okay, this is like that.
That was
That's
good. Yeah,
scary.
you're right.
Like, I would be freaked out if I was 13 or whatever.
Oh sure. I mean, I'd be freaked out if I went and saw my spouse with a claw marker on their chest, on their dead body. Like
Yeah.
in real reality, like yeah, she should puke at that. But
Yeah, I
for a
think
movie-
the entirety of the morgue scene is more uncomfortable to watch than the funeral scene, and then especially when it cuts back and she's just got like a ding on her head and everyone's like, no one's helping her, like she just like has to get up on her own. It's like, what the
the whole funeral is just watching her.
And then the best part though is when it cuts to the priest or whatever, and he's like, and God bless America, and everybody get home on time, and don't forget to tip your bartender. And you're like, what is this guy saying?
And don't
then he
fall
just kind of
asleep.
runs away. Like, you gotta go. There's an earthquake. You're in an open field during an earthquake. That's where you want to be, is a graveyard.
Yeah.
There's no overhanging objects. If there's a crack in the earth, you can dive out of the way of it. It's a pretty good place to be. Though you might fall into a grave, and a grave gets opened up, and then
Yeah, not
meet an old
necessarily
ancestor or
cemetery.
something. Like, oh shit.
You have to crawl
Cemetery
for a
might be a
portal.
bad place to be in an earthquake.
If you're
Can you
underneath,
imagine?
if you're sitting directly next to a tombstone that falls over on you, I
Can you
suppose.
imagine being in a cemetery and an earthquake happens and all the bodies just like float up? Out of the ground?
Or it's like a sinkhole and it like sinks everything.
Oh,
and
it
then
pulls you into the ground with all the corpses.
Yeah, and you just see all
Yeah.
these coffins going down, and you're like, ah!
Oh, man.
Like,
Oh,
come
you're
up
just
for
clawing
opening, like,
your way
ah!
out. and-
That's an
See, now
incredible
that would
nightmare.
be a freaky scene.
You know,
On
I think
Elm
we
Street.
just started making our own movie.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
called
We
Graveyard
have a
Sequel.
scene. We're gonna build
It's called
from there.
Graveyard on Elm Street.
No, it's called Rave to the Grave. So we
All right, I'm in.
yeah, there's a
Can we
rave at a
film with,
graveyard.
EDM and happy hardcore.
No, we got to get REM.
Yeah, they will definitely be on board.
So it turns
Sorry, go ahead.
it turns out that was all a dream. She wakes up. Robert Englund offers to help because he's at this funeral, and it feels all very weird. So that night, Dylan is just watching Nightmare on Elm Street on the TV again. So my I guess theory here is that Freddy Krueger is just putting Nightmare on Elm Street on the TV a bunch.
No,
Yeah,
it's-
is this the
Heather-
scene where they
No.
afterwards they
So
cut? and they-
Heather loves watching the Superstation, and it just so happened to be
That's
it happened to
just
be
on the TV all the
October.
time.
It was October during this movie, and they just kept playing Nightmare on Elm Street over and over again.
Over and over, yeah. Well,
But
Dylan's
is
in a
this-
trance.
Is this the scene where after she's turned the TV off later at the end of the scene they cut and the TV's not even plugged in?
No, that's much later.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a he wakes up, he's freaking out, and then he starts singing the 1-2 Freddy's coming for you.
And she's like, "Where did you
And,
hear that?" And it's like, "But he was just
The
watching
TV's
the
right
movie."
there. Yeah.
No, but he
All the
also
scenes where he's
says
watching the movie frustrated me because I'm like, hey, turn the TV off. Your kid's watching a rated R movie and he's 4 years old. Just turn the
Yeah.
TV off, and she doesn't.
but he
and also
says
the-
that he's heard the movie under his covers.
Yeah, and she also says, "Did you hear it from that movie?" Like, it's like, yeah, obviously.
The man with the claw hand is coming to get me, and then he gets a nosebleed, and so I think he's going through
And
it.
she's like, "Dylan, what the frick?"
HMC. Yeah.
Yeah, true. And then Dylan's like, "Hey, can you come into my dreams with me?" And she's like, "Ugh."
No.
Girls,
so-
that happened in the 4th movie and it turned out bad for everybody.
Yeah. Is that the,
where
the unborn one or whatever? The
No, that's the one where it's what's the character's name? The actress is Tuesday Night, where she's the
Oh,
dream
right.
master and she can
Right,
pull
right.
people into her dreams.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, where all the supernatural stuff that isn't Freddy starts happening, superpower stuff. The next day at the playground, there's another event where Dylan ends up
yeah.
on top of the playground. Heather talks to.
We should also mention we get introduced to the actor. What's his name? Sorry,
John Saxon,
John
who
Saxon.
played her
Yeah.
dad in the first movie.
In the first movie, he's at the funeral as well of her husband, which there's a strong implication that they are friends in real life. If someone comes to your husband's funeral, I would assume they are friends with you. You know, like
Yeah.
you're not
Oh, also speaking of that funeral and people from the first movie, I forget the character's name and the actor's name, but the like jockey guy from the first movie who like dresses in the leather and has the slicked hair. He's at the funeral. You just see him in the background.
Oh, really?
No lines, but he's fucking there.
What a good guy.
Says, yours with the swirling lawnmower.
Yeah. Is it the guy who
Also
gets
another-
in the jail or whatever?
Yeah, the guy who killed himself, or what they think killed himself in jail.
Yeah.
He's at the funeral
He's
as well.
there too, eh?
Another
There might
thing
be-
that I
I'll take
noticed-
time off from my job at the car wash to come down and film a scene for the new Freddy Krueger movie.
I was in one fucking movie in my whole career, and you remind me of the slick. You just call me the slick back hair guy.
Fuck,
He killed
fuck you, I'm
himself.
gonna find out his name now just so I stop
I
disrespecting
tried to get a real new franchise off the ground called the Slick Back Killer, but nobody was interested.
Speaking of the background things that are happening in this movie, I noticed that during the sequence when she's talking to her dad from the other movie,
Yeah.
there's a kid on a bicycle who drives by in the background, and it rings the bell. He's wearing a Freddy Krueger style shirt, and then he drives through the foreground, and I was like, it's just if you watch this movie 100 times, would you catch references to Freddy Krueger through this whole
I think so,
film?
because like there's like a bunch that I notice, and I'm not even really like a Freddy Krueger enthusiast to the point that I watch them when I watched them a couple of times, and then we started doing this, and I watched each one once for it. This is probably the one that I've seen the most, which doesn't help me to find the references because if it's referencing the other
it's the one I've
movies-
seen the least for sure, except maybe 5 because that one's terrible.
Yeah. I put this one on similar to the way I put on like Hook or Jurassic Park or something, where I've seen the beginning like 40 minutes of this movie like 100 times, but then I often will fall asleep or turn it off to go to bed. So I haven't seen the ending nearly as many times, to the point that I'm like, how does this end again? Like I couldn't really remember.
That's fair. And the beginning of this movie is, in my opinion, better than the end. I think they climax early and then it tapers off. In my opinion, it becomes more predictable.
It becomes a Freddy Krueger movie by the end, where you're like, I now know what's going to happen without even being certain of it. Or I'm like, I don't know, but he's probably going to run across the freeway because they keep saying freeway over and over again, right? Like,
We'll talk about that when we get to it. At this point in the film, though, it's revealed that Heather's family has like a history of people going to the loony bin, which isn't really explored. But then the dad character from the previous movies, the original movie, says that famous people go through this all the time. Meanwhile, they look up and see Dylan up on top of the playground reaching for the sun, and he falls. Heather manages to catch him, and Dylan says, "God wanted to take me," in kind of a what Ralph Wiggum style voice, which I thought was pretty hilarious because this kid kind of reminds me of Ralph Wiggum.
I never thought that, but okay, yeah, that's that's good. So does he say specifically famous? I think he just says like, if having somebody crazy in your family makes you crazy, then we'd all be in the loony bin or something. Like, I think it's like he just
okay.
His point is like his point is just like everybody knows somebody who's got a couple screw loose, and but the best part about this is the entire time he's trying to be like, listen, you're not crazy, your son's not crazy, the situation definitely crazy, but nothing about you or your son is crazy. And then they both are like, oh fuck, your crazy son's about to jump off the playground.
I think that the celebrities going through it all the time too is like, when you're in a movie, it's going to seem like everything around you, because you're so ingrained in the film, is happening to you, just to sort of ease her mind about it.
Being a celebrity, I can only imagine, gives you sort of like this weird sense of self that I don't think exists outside of that. Like, I can't imagine what it would be like to walk down the street and people know who you are or recognize you or treat you like you're special for some reason when all you've done is just like, act in a play or something,
And you've never met any of them.
Yeah. And like, I think that's sort of what they're going with for her to like, because she seems relatively normal in this movie, but like, and she's almost like, I don't like it. Like, I don't like being what you want me to be. They don't really get into it enough, I think, for it to be, meaty enough for you to sink your teeth into as sort of like an analysis. But like, I do think that there's elements of it there. And as he's talking to her, he's like, listen, we're all just fucking people, right? We're not special. Nothing special.
We're not in a weird world where everybody's having dreams and the dreams are coming to life and attacking us within our dreams.
I do think the best part about the scene, though, is that the entirety of it is him trying to calm her down by being like, you're not crazy, your son's not crazy, and then the entire time it's cutting to him just climbing higher and higher in this like extremely dangerous looking fucking playground.
Extremely dangerous. That's, for me, that was the scariest scene in the movie.
Well,
like,
you have
I
kids,
saw my
right?
5-year-old on top of that like 40-foot high structure.
Mm-hmm.
Terrifying. I would do.
Why is there a little window on top?
Just run over and hope to catch him. I guess.
I was getting that.
I bet
like,
so many kids died on that thing.
But I mean, I assume that if that is a real playground, that thing that opens up is probably like welded shut, like in regular time of year. But they're like, let's make it a door so he can go. But they could have just built this whole playground for all we know. But I also did notice that when he's on there, I don't know if you guys caught it, but like when he's up there, he's really up there. But there's this sort of like rig structure that he's inside of for the pants. So when he's moving around, the pants are like, you can tell that they're moving and stuff. But when he's like doing the God thing, his top half is moving, but the legs are like so rigid that he's clearly locked into some sort of like you will never fall rig.
Yeah, I did not notice that.
If you go back and watch it, it's like it's quite, once you're like looking for it, you're like, how did they film this? You're like, oh, those pants ain't moving. That's some sort of like weird like Iron Maiden for your lower waist where he's not getting out of there.
And the Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
So she gives Robert Englund a call to be like, what the fuck is going on? He's painting. Is Robert Englund like a painter in real life? It seemed like
if I ever meet him again, I want to ask him like, that scene, are you like an actual painter? Like, you do it for therapy?
That he is. They seem to be pulling a lot from real life. Like, again, Heather being married to like a special effects artist.
And like the painting that he's doing is like, it's impactful, right? Like it's got a lot of motion to it, and like, but you wouldn't say that it's like a beautiful, like technically proficient painting. It's just sort of like it feels sort of like emotions on canvas or whatever. Which
I just pictured him as like his hobby that he does when he's not acting.
But there's a couple of paintings in the background that are like nice looking. Like
that's what I was gonna say. Like he's got a room. He's in like a night. It's over Hollywood Hills. Studio. He's got an infinity pool before they like existed, was what it seems like. And
I want a pool that never ends, bitch.
Bitch. Yeah. And he's painting this painting that, from our point of view, at first, it just seems like he's painting like these dark like colors. And at the end of the scene, it pans up, and he has fully painted Freddy. And then he's gone from the movie for the rest of the movie because he leaves town, as we find out. He's like, "Oh shit, I gotta get out of here."
This sort of sequence, though, because like, as you say, it's not showing us, Jason, but the entirety of it is like meant to make you be like, oh my god, he painted Freddy, probably, right? It's probably like a painting of Freddy. Let's see that painting of Freddy.
He also mentions his own dreams are getting worse himself. He's also experiencing some weird.
As you said before, he keeps doing this where he's like, like just listen to her, Robert. Stop hanging the phone.
Yeah, why do you have to take the phone away from your ear to look with your eyes at something?
You're already looking at him.
There's no one else in the room that's talking to you that you need.
She's like, "Can I come over and talk about this?" And he's like, "No, not today. Today's not good. Not. Maybe tomorrow."
I've painted Freddy on this canvas. I don't think
I kind of liked it though. Like, it shows that, like, I mean, there's like an alternate story happening in this movie where like Robert Englund is also losing his mind,
or
like
Wes, or
Heather's
all
not
of
the
them.
only
Like,
one.
there's even the implication we didn't really hit on it earlier when they're in Shay's office, and like there's an implication that he's also being haunted by Freddy. Because remember, the phone
Yeah, it's
starts
more
ringing.
subtle, but yeah, it's
Like,
there.
why aren't you going to pick up the fucking phone? And he's like, well, we got people to pick up the phone. Like, he's probably getting like weird calls, being like, you want to make another one, bitch.
Yeah, he's getting the 1-2 Freddy's coming for you calls.
Yeah.
Also,
You have a collect call from
Freddy Krueger, bitch.
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah. So that night, Freddy arrives. You see the claw through the iconic claw through the bed. But she wakes up as some cutlery is clanging downstairs. Dylan is down there chanting the thing. 1-2 Freddy's coming for you, and he's made a claw out of knives, which we've all held knives like Wolverine. But have you ever taped knives to your fingers?
no, I've never used tape and taken the blade out of the handles.
I thought you were just gonna say I've never used tape ever in my life.
Never.
Not for one thing. Not even
Are you kidding me? I got some tape right here. I'm going to show you some goddamn tape. That is some thick, double-sided tape. It's a very strong stuff. I use that to stick my USB hub to my desk, so I can shove USB.
I like the version of you where you never use tape and you use like a nail gun for like wrapping Christmas presents. You're like,
all right, I will change for you, Steven.
I love that.
I'll be the man you want me to be. I'll
he
forget everything I ever knew about tape.
Dylan fully attacks Heather with the claws, and that triggers her to wake up. And then basically the same thing happens again, where Dylan is chanting. Only this time, he's chanting "Never sleep again." And on the floor, there's papers strewn that have a burnt kind of insignia that say "Never sleep again." I think. No, they say answer the phone, and then
they say answer the phone. I don't. Is there ever a scene where they lay them out?
Papers burned to say answer the phone, and
I'm
then
gonna be honest. I
and
lost
phone...
a bit of interest in the middle of this movie, so I'm light on details for the second.
Okay, so that's what they say on the ground when they answer the phone. They get the
I somehow like don't remember either, and I've seen this movie.
His mouth,
times.
he starts foaming out of his mouth, and then the phone, starts foaming as well.
Yeah, I remember that.
And he has another like freak out attack. So they go back to the hospital.
We have to call.
I like to think that instead of pumping like soap through the phone, that it was actually someone just like was just like their mouth. There was actually
like a button.
Yeah,
like one of those old toys.
No, we have to do it all practical. And it's like,
yeah,
he's like, I mean,
be real.
It has to be real. And everyone's like, okay, how do you want to do that?
All right.
Wes is like, I'll do it myself. He's got like
you're the man, Wes.
He's got the house hose from last episode, Jason. He's like blowing fucking Alka-Seltzer like through.
Because when we were kids, we all drank from the fire hose. We all drank from the hose that hangs at the side of the house.
Yeah, and we're all okay.
Yeah. I just have generational lead poisoning.
I have horrible depression.
That is definitely from drinking from a garden hose.
I have osteoporosis.
That's my diagnosis, and I am not a doctor.
Yeah, you are.
Right.
The doctors think the kid has pediatric schizophrenia. The doctor brings sleeping pills for Dylan. I thought he was going to get
pediatric schizophrenia and regular schizophrenia.
You're a kid and you're schizophrenic.
It's like juvenile diabetes. It's the same fucking thing. You're just a kid.
Yeah.
Juvenile diabetes sounds like you're up to no good about it.
Like mischievous diabetes.
You're gonna go to juvie.
Like you're somebody with diabetes. Sugar. You have a slingshot in your back pocket. This guy's got juvenile diabetes for sure. That's funny, right? Okay, so
yeah, I think it's great.
Right. So as Dylan's going to sleep, he pulls the pill out of his mouth because he realizes he can never sleep again.
I think we all realized that was going to happen, right? The amount of fucking like song and dance they make about this pill, we're all like, he's not going to swallow the pill.
He's not taking that pill.
Yeah.
Heather's driving home. She almost hits another car. She can't get her seatbelt on. I thought this stuck out to me because she's like freaking out. She almost backs into a car. She goes to put her seatbelt on. She can't get it. She goes, ah, and just like beelines it out of there. I thought it was just a funny thing to see somebody take their seatbelt and not like try it twice. but you know how seatbelts stick,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
they
she
stick-
throws her hands. Just thought that
Listen,
was a
man.
weird choice.
I sometimes will close a drawer and like my shawl or whatever, my shirt will get stuck in it, and I'll yank, and then I'll be like, I'm not fucking making breakfast. And then I'll just go back to bed. I'm like,
I'm going
"Fuck
back
it."
to bed for the rest of the day. I'm gonna do
Yeah.
this over
Yeah,
tomorrow.
I did that yesterday. I don't remember what set it off. I did no dishes yesterday. I said "fuck you, dishes" because
There was one time where I was about to do laundry, and I took my laundry basket, left my apartment, and my pocket hooked on the door, and I dropped the laundry in the hallway, and I just scooped it all back up, and I haven't done laundry since. It's been about 4 months. It's still not done.
I can smell your shirt from here.
Heather is almost falling asleep in the car. She's going to try to drive to Robert Anglin's house, but she calls along the way and he's out of town. And the score swells really cool. I made a note of that. I remember that. So she goes to Wes Craven's house.
We should also mention oh wait, this might be after. Sorry, go ahead, Jason. I think I might have got my timelines mixed up in my head.
I made a note here that Wes Craven, actually pretty good actor compared to the executives, for not like from the beginning when he's like nice and jovial and like talking to the people making his scenes at the beginning of the movie to even now. Is still has a little bit of that thing we were talking about with the executives, but he is actually like trying.
He's not
got
the
a
best
best
actor, but he
face.
knows. He wrote the script. He knows exactly what he wants himself to say, and he's like, I am the character, so I'm.
And he directed too, right? So I mean,
yeah.
he gets the director, so.
And it's not great, but it's not bad. Like there are a couple of points where I'm like, he's not a good actor, but I'm also like, I don't care though. Like, this is the director of the movie playing himself in a movie. Like, I'm like, this is all so good. Like, I don't give a
the thing is, I mean, coming from the franchise where it's campy as fuck up until this point, there's going to be some camp leading into it. So some bad acting from movie executives.
He's also doing like a good job of being sort of like, he's hyper focused on, he wants to tell her the information, right? But he's like beating around the bush. And there's a moment where like his housekeeper comes up or whatever, and he's like, oh yeah, coffee. And like, he just says like, and it's like this weird little moment where she takes the coffee and starts drinking it. But like, you can tell that he wrote that in there to be like, oh, I forgot that I offered you coffee, and she probably heard me say that, and then I never went to go make coffee. And then the housekeeper, like, this is just my own brain being like, she probably
you're probably right. I never obviously thought about that because that's
because I like the fact that, like, you know, he's like, they come to me in dreams. Every time I go to sleep, I wake up and I write a couple of pages, and that's it. And then he promises that he won't go to sleep until he writes the rest of the script throughout. And you're like, well, where are you going to get the dreams from?
Yeah, that's
like, okay, so you're probably being affected outside of it. It's all kind of interesting and cool. Like, it's just
this whole sequence is the most meta stuff, because what I want to say is
that's what they said the name of the movie in the movie.
Damn it, I didn't know.
Normally not this loud, and I got actually frightened by that.
He never actually says a new nightmare, but this whole sequence of him explaining that he does say nightmare a couple times, which was my kind of starting off point. But the fact that he has to have dreams to create the script that he's writing, talking about the nightmare that he's having in order to be a part of all of this, and the nightmare being in progress, all kind of fit into the meta-ness of saying the name of the movie in the movie. Like, this is him doing like kind of a plot dump, exposition dump of what we're experiencing. It is the like title drop, kind of, is how I kind of
I agree. This is him explaining what the new nightmare is. So this is
talks about the old entity, and like he's having this dream about how there's the old Freddy was a dream creature who, the longer it goes between him coming back, the more powerful he gets, and the more he wants to come back, which is a really interesting way to look at Freddy. Because the
It's
original,
an interesting concept, but this was the point I mentioned earlier, where it's like Nancy's talking to him, and he's like, yeah, I think you're right, and then he goes into this big thing about how he's got all this like mythos, and backstory. I guess he wrote all. He didn't write all the movies, but like, I guess it makes sense that he would know a lot about it. But you would think he would know a lot about Freddy the character because that's who he wrote, and then there's this demon. And he seems to just know a lot about this demon.
When the story dies, that's when the evil returns, and it's been 10 years, even though it's only been a couple years.
Yeah, we know what he said, but like,
yeah,
I think that Craig is right where it's like, well, why does he know this? And like, that's what I was getting at before, where it's like, it seems like
it seems like he's read
he
like
has a room with candles and a chalice and a big old ancient tome or something that he's like pouring over.
And it might just be an acting thing. It might just be acting incorrectly. Like he's supposed to be telling the story that he's come up with, I think, but it sounds like he's read the Necronomicon, like he said.
But the thing is that like there's a point in this scene where I think it, like, you almost expect him to be like, well, it's just a story, Nancy, it's not real. Like that's what it seems like it's getting to, right?
Yeah,
like,
he's like all in on it.
But then instead of that, it's like, no, it's real. All of it's fucking real. Everything I just told you is real.
We have to make another movie, and I have to finish the script.
Yeah, I swear. And he's got like bed sheets like hanging in the window to block the light out and stuff. Yeah. You're like, this guy. And the thing is like, it made me feel like, oh, this is his real writing space. Like he knows the light comes in from a certain angle at a certain point of day, so he's got sheets hanging there so that it doesn't get into his eyes when he's typing on his computer, which I know about. I know that feeling. Trying to play video games at 4 p.m. on the west end of Toronto. Yeah. You're like, oh, I can't see. My building's facing the wrong way.
Yeah, we got nice curtains in the living room for that.
But I don't hate any of it, but I do think it could be better. I think that like, even just his living room has like a bunch of, kind of interesting statuaries and like statuettes and busts and stuff everywhere. But then there's also like a framed photograph of Heather Langenkamp from the first movie, just like in the background as well, where you're like, I guess that's like, he would have that. He'd be like, this is the reason I am who I am, is like this actress made me what I am today. It's like a respect to her, but at the same time, it plays into the story as well, right? Like, who better to kill Freddy or to reseal him into this realm that we're going to try and create than the person that. And she's like, I'm not her though. I'm Heather. I'm not Nancy. And he's like, but Nancy is the one that fucking embarrassed his ass the first time. He's connected to you as much as he's connected to me.
There's also an episode. I watched the first season of Extreme Ghostbusters recently, and there's an episode where there's a writer so the ghosts that they're trying to go and take down, the ghosts only exist while the writer is in a trance writing. So the Ghostbusters have to figure out a way to get this writer to stop writing. And I almost feel like the writer looks like R.L. Stine, but it's the plot of this movie basically. And I thought it was really interesting to finally get to this.
I would not be surprised if like Wes Craven was somehow involved in being a guest writer on a Ghostbusters cartoon show for like one episode, being like,
I thought
he's a writer. You're like Stephen King or something.
I thought R.L. Stine is not a real person. It's a ghostwriter for all of those. Are you telling me that R.L.
That was a rumor, a weird rumor for a little while, but he's a real guy.
He's a real person. Yeah.
Cool.
But sounds like the plot of an R.L. Stine novel.
That too. But the plotline of this movie very much feels like we have to stop Wes Craven from dreaming, or else Freddy's gonna come back.
It does, right? Like, it's like just smash him in the head with one of his busts that he has in his house. But there's also like so many different alternative endings to this movie that could have existed, and I think all of them I would have been okay with. I don't mind the one we got, but like, I would have loved like Wes Craven, Robert Englund, and Heather Langenkamp having to like team up against Freddy in the Hell World together, just like killing the creation.
Dream Warriors.
Yeah, like the three of them like killing the creation together or whatever. Right? That would have been pretty fun.
Or she like wakes. She either doesn't wake up. It cuts to her dying at the end of this movie, and then it comes out of the dream, and she's been killed by the dream. And then like all of the people that we've been introduced from the previous movies are like, I can't believe she died. And then the evil is still alive, like something like that would have been. Exactly. Yeah. But he does say to her, like, because you played Nancy, you give her strength.
Yeah.
And
I like that line. I like that line. Like I wrote Nancy. He said something like, I wrote Nancy, but you gave her strength.
Also, as a nitpick, fucking take a sip of water, Wes Craven. This isn't an ASMR video. I don't need to hear it.
I
While you're
didn't
talking.
watch with headphones.
I also picked up on that too, Jason, because like I do it all day, every day, and you can hear the like you're just like
certain people don't recognize when they need to fucking wet their mouths, and hearing
some people also don't know when they have a disgusting phlegmy gargle in the back of their throat, and I have to remind them of it. Jason, I'm just kidding.
Hey man, that was years ago at this point. I hate vocal fry personally.
Yeah.
Right. So the only way to stop Freddy is to make a new movie, apparently. And
it's such a dumb thing, but it's also like, I guess if that's how we did it the first time, we have to do it this time as well. And
but we also see
I'm not against
the scene written on a computer in the room too. Like this is what I was talking about earlier, where I'm like, this is the stuff that you should roll your eyes at, but you're also kind of like, oh, exciting. Like I'm kind of excited now.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
if it was anyone else but Wes Craven, it would have been terrible.
Yeah. I mean, the only other movie that I get this excited about, like seeing the words being displayed in the scene on the page on screen, is like I was gonna say Never Ending Story, but Never Ending Story and Spaceballs are basically the same movie.
They're basically the same. No, but Spaceballs is what's happening right now. We're in the movie and they're looking back at the camera.
But how?
Yeah.
I see. It's like we were talking about Dune earlier. How like Dune, everything from Star Wars was taken from Dune. Everything from Spaceballs was taken from the Never Ending Story.
Yeah, probably. I'm not going to research that, but you're probably right.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's like a samurai.
If you really think about Spaceballs, it's not a Star Wars parody. It's a Never Ending Story parody.
It's a Never Ending Story remake, is what it is.
Yeah. You just have to watch it like a bunch of times before you get it.
And then you'll get it.
So we cut to her like reading about sleep deprivation. She remembers
for some reason my brain just went, "We ain't found shit." Like the people
ain't found shit. That's another not really Star Wars because it's Spaceballs, but that's Tim Russ who played Tuvok in Star Trek Voyager.
Well, my brain went, "We ain't found shit" to Artax, like pulling the horse out of the fucking deadly desert or whatever, or not the deadly desert,
the swamps
of
the swamply swamp.
Yeah.
It can sleep deprivation can activate pediatric schizophrenia, and this is when the TV comes on. We find
Peter Jackson's schizophrenia. What's that?
Pediatric.
Oh, I thought you said Peter Jackson's schizophrenia.
Peter Jackson's schizophrenia. The movie he made. It's very gory and disgusting. I think I'm thinking
a lot of pus in
it. A different one.
That's gross.
The TV comes on repeatedly. And we find out that the scene from the beginning of the movie was actually real. I don't know what that note really
we don't.
Oh yeah, no, those special effects artists that died in her dream at the beginning, then they actually died in real life.
Yes, right, because it shows a scene.
But also, if you listen to what she says that they got killed in a field because somebody was trying to rob them of the glove they were making, which is like, it's so strange. Or you're like,
in a field or in the field, because those are two different statements.
I think they said a field, like their bodies were found in a field.
Oh, the bodies were found in a field.
They were found dead in a field.
Yeah, and then they're like,
Freddy's giant ghost glove just came and lifted them from a movie set over into a
just like
just dumped them.
Yeah, like The Sims.
Or like the scene later with the freeway.
Did you guys catch?
It's also like The Sims. Yeah.
Did you guys catch at this point that Heather is doing the like traditional Friday Nightmare on Elm Street thing where she just has a pot of coffee on her bedside table?
Yeah,
I love it.
That's
a staple of the Nightmare series. Is just
eating fucking coffee grounds is crazy. Yeah. That was a good one. And then we get another earthquake. Freddy fully returns. He looks great, and he slashes her on the wrist. So she fights him. She basically just like battles him, has a quick battle with him, and then
this
rushes
is also
to
another iconic
hospital.
Is when he comes out of the closet and he says like, "Miss me."
Talk for a minute about this sequence. I'll be right back.
It's a great shot It's one of those like
Yeah.
sort of like wide angles where like it comes at you unexpectedly, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh
they
my
shot it
God.
in a way that it feels like he's really coming at you, even though it's in a TV screen.
Yeah, and just the way, like coming from inside a closet is like the nightmare scenario for every child, but like it's happening to her, right? Where she's like, well, there's nothing in the closet, but no, he's in there. That's where he is. Everywhere he comes from in this movie is from a classically conjured from a child's imagination, under the bed, from a closet, and they all work really well. But then we get to see his amazing leather pants as he kung fu fights her in this bedroom, which again I've mentioned it before. The setting is great. Also, too many cup chairs in this bedroom. Am I right? You only need one, I guess.
Yeah, I think I probably dozed off during the scene. You guys were talking about the leather pants earlier, and I had no idea what you guys were talking about. So I need to go back and watch the scene. Hold on, press pause on the podcast. I'll be back
Pause.
in 10
Yeah.
minutes. Yeah.
Okay, so now that we're back, Freddy Krueger pops out of the closet and he's got leather pants on, and we're like, whoa.
Oh my God,
man.
those leather pants! I just saw them. It was outstanding.
Yeah, and we're like, Freddy, where'd you get those? And he's like, I got them from your mom's closet, bitch. And then,
But she shops at Hot Topic.
she shops at Hot Topic, bitch. There's not really any conversation that goes on between them during this fight, but they end up rolling under the bed, and you're like, okay, this is the weird sort of sexual tension that always exists in a Freddy Krueger movie, where he's a pervert. Remember, he's a pervert. We always have to know that he's a pervert. But in this, there's never any kind of real gross sexual tension. It's more like, I want to kill you. I just need to kill you. But first, I need to kill your son in front of you. I think that's the whole concept of this version of him, right?
Actually, brings up a very good idea.
I was going to say a very good point too, because like I also wear a CPAP to sleep because I have sleep apnea, and you're not supposed to put stuff in your CPAP. But what if because it's basically like a vaporizer, right? And I've seen people online talk about putting like essential oils in it, which you're 100% not supposed to do. But what if you just put a full pot of coffee into your CPAP machine?
Or but if you just like some wine in there.
Yeah.
Yes, but fill it up with some
You're just like, all right, Freddy Krueger, come get some, bitch.
And he's like,
Did you call me bitch? I called you a bitch, Freddy.
I didn't mean so much in the Nightmare on Elm Street scenario. I just meant in general to like.
No, I know.
inhale.
I didn't mean it either. I mean, that's just what would happen if you did it.
Fair, okay.
You would be drunk talking about Freddy Krueger in your room.
Fair.
Come and get me.
So over at the hospital, Julie's there for some reason. Julie's an interesting character.
She has no other personality. Her character and her
babysitter
existence is babysitter.
Yeah.
Who has the best? I meant to bring this up earlier. Her hair is like the most 90s. She's got those bangs that kind of like flip out, the very light bangs. She's the most 90s looking person.
She also has a very 90s side quest actor energy.
Yeah.
Like,
she's been in a couple other things, not a lot that I can recall.
When she first appeared, when we were first watching the movie, I thought it was Téa Leoni. It's not.
No,
but she looks like Téa Leoni, like a young Téa Leoni. But Téa Leoni, it doesn't even start to exist until the Bad Boys movie, so she wouldn't even been around yet.
This is another actor named Tay Baloney, and she is
Delaney Baloney.
No, she's good though. I don't think that she's a bad addition to the movie. I think that she's necessary in a lot of ways. But I do also think you're right, Craig, where it's like she doesn't have anything. Like there's nothing else.
No, she's got no identity other than babysitter. We only
but also to get killed brutally.
In a traditional Freddy Krueger movie, we would have gotten probably like 3 or 4 scenes of her at home by herself experiencing Freddy Krueger moments.
Yeah.
But in this, it almost feels like a video game where it's like you're playing as the character of Heather, and then you get to the hospital and all of a sudden Julie's there, and you're like, Julie, why the fuck are you here? And she's like, I had a dream about Dylan, and I had to come see him. Which I don't, again, like it's one of those things where I'm like, in most movies I'd be like, fucking bullshit, but in this I'm like, no, because we're so hyper focused on Heather, I kind of like the fact that it's like, other people are having these Freddy Krueger moments on their
Yes.
own,
Yeah.
but we never see them. And like, I like that we're focused on Heather. It makes it more interesting to me.
And going back to my what I thought this movie was this whole time for literally 30 years, I thought we were going to get like a traditional group, but in those old movies, it's all kids, like teenagers getting killed one by one in slasher form. In this, there's only people there's sort of like collateral damage getting killed by weird happenstance in reality.
You're right. It's like the other deaths aren't even characters. They're just side.
It's just we have to
I
show a
think
death.
the only time we get anything outside of Heather is her husband. And it's almost like,
Yeah.
it's almost like, again, like she's dreaming that, because when
He
dies,
basically gets
she
killed
wakes
off
up.
camera, but we see it.
Well, we see it because
started it.
she's dreaming it, right? And she wants to confirm that what she saw in her dream was real. I do think that, like, the structure of this movie in terms of a Freddy Krueger movie is stronger than most of the other Freddy Krueger movies. Like, I think it is like,
structure-wise,
this
this
is
movie
how it
really
should
has
work
the
in
most.
all of them. We don't need to wander off and go through every person's dream to make it scary. It's like, it's almost scarier if you don't know why this other person's frightened until they reveal it.
But people watch the first 6 movies to just watch a bunch of creative.
That is 100% true.
Like
Yes,
a series of crazy.
and I
It's
don't
like
I don't
Friday the 13th.
disagree with it. I just think
Yeah.
that this changing the format makes it it makes it feel fresh. Yeah, it makes it feel different. And I even like these other characters that are coming in where you're like, I don't like this character, but then you're like, oh, I do like this character. Oh, I don't like this character again. Like all these hospital people that
Oh,
show up.
the doctor who
Yeah.
gets so hyper focused on have you shown your son your movies?
Yeah.
Well, I think that this is one of those things where like she suspects that Heather is probably doing drugs, and she's
Yeah.
like, your son could have some sort of like fetal acid
Well,
syndrome. Have you been
we're
doing
not
drugs?
quite there
Yeah,
yet,
yeah,
though.
yeah, yeah.
Like
We'll get to
we're introduced to the fact that they've put Dylan in an oxygen tent and he's on watch for some reason. That's never really explained.
Because he has schizophrenia. He has Peter Jackson schizophrenia.
He has
don't you
Peter
know?
Jackson
Yeah,
schizophrenia.
Deprives you of oxygen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, but you are right. The doctor sees the slashes on her arm. She says Heather says it happens in an
Well, this
earthquake.
is we've already been introduced to these characters at this point, like way back when the first placement of him in the hospital occurred.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
true.
But they didn't play out to anything grand until now. But like we do have
What
these nurses and the doctor.
What was interesting about this sequence is that we realize is the earthquake that was happening when she gets attacked by Freddy like a few minutes ago didn't happen at all. It was all
Right.
like a dream. And that's
Yeah,
the
they ask her
weird
about the
ethereal
scratches,
nature
and
of
she's
all
like,
of
"It happened
this.
during the earthquake just now." And they're like, "What earthquake?" We
She
must have
says
not
like
gotten
the
around
earthquake
time
happened
highway.
3 days ago. These are fresh
Yeah.
gardener wounds. You get attacked by a gardener again. And
And that's when the doctor's like, have you let your kids see your movies?
Yeah.
but she's also like, does your family have a history of drug use? Because
Yeah.
it can get passed down through, like we need to know.
But did you notice it was she does tell Dylan at one point, like we said, or she tells the doctor while she's like asking her about all this stuff. She's like, yeah, Freddy Krueger is synonymous, like what Craig was saying too, is synonymous with being a kid. You're afraid of various things. You know about these various like mythological creatures like Santa Claus or King Kong. Everybody knows who, or Michael Jackson, or Peter Pan, or Robin Hood. You know who he is. And what was funny is they're like, no visiting hours for the last 10 minutes. Cut to her sitting in the room with Dylan.
Well, listen, I mean,
Yeah.
this is one of those moments where like the doctor is not an evil character. Like she sees that this mother is distressed and she's like, okay, we can break the rules and let you
Yeah,
go.
no
They're not gonna be like,
hospital is going to stop a mother or father from
Yeah.
seeing their like 4-year-old, 5-year-old son overnight. Like you're allowed to stay overnight.
I think this is one of the strengths of this entire sequence in the movie is that like the movie is trying to make us hate this doctor, but then we're also presented with horrifying imagery of the doctor that like makes us hate the doctor even more as an audience. But then you're supposed to be heightened and aware of her because of those.
Mhm.
But at the same
Yeah.
time, she's acting completely reasonable the entire
Yeah.
The doctor is not stopping her from seeing her son. She's not doing anything that like in most movies are like, security. Like she's not doing that kind of shit. She's like, just let her go.
And that does come later.
Well,
but she
after
repeats a couple times during this her entrances in the movie.
security
She
shows up
says,
after
like,
a
just
nurse
so you
gets,
know, I'm only concerned for your son's welfare.
which she
And
is.
then later,
and I
the
believe it.
security comes in or whatever.
But the security shows up after what's her name sucker punches a nurse in the face, like, and then they don't
Elbows
escort
and
her
stuff.
out. Like she punches a nurse in the face to the point that she, like Indiana Jones, hit this nurse gets flown out of the room into like a
Now
car.
that part, okay. So the doctor has some what's the word I'm looking for? Culpable or reasonable deniability or whatever. Like she's not an evil character. She's being a doctor. The nurses, I'm watching that scene with the nurses when they secretly stick this kid with drugs. That's
we'll get to.
fucking insane. Like that's a lawsuit right there.
Well, before we get to that, did you guys notice
they also while that okay, sorry, go.
We'll get it's coming up. There's just something I want to talk about really quickly. We talked about other references to horror when Heather's sitting in the chair and Dylan's in the oxygen tent. She does she nods off and then comes back to, and then she's in a dream, obviously. But Dylan full on speaks in tongues and then vomits like bile.
Doesn't speak in tongues. He speaks in his voice, and then his voice slowly turns into Freddy's voice, which is like
exactly.
It was a pretty good effect,
which was awesome. But like an Exorcist reference right there was pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that. I think.
Yeah, I love when somebody pukes on another person. That's it's always great. It's also like really gross looking barf too. It's like black and chunky. You're like, ugh.
Yeah.
And then Freddy shows up and he's like, well, no, the
doctor
dreaming. The doctor has the claw. He's like, we gotta cut this evil out of him, which
it's
I thought
so
was
good. It's so
awesome.
because it escalates to a point, and like you can see there's something on her hands, and then she's like, we've got to cut this evil out of him, and she pulls up her hands, and it's just a bunch of scalpels taped to her hand in the same way that he had taped the knives to his hand. So it's not
and
even
the
like
actress, that doctor actress. She's so fucking good. She is good.
Yeah, she's really good. She's making me believe and think with her the entire time. Because every time you see her, you're like, I can tell that she's thinking exactly what I'm thinking right now, which is this fucking lady is crazy. Like she's making me believe it.
I imagine for you, Craig, like you, obviously, me and Steven are childless. But you have kids. If you had been going through this beat by beat through this movie, you might have been experiencing it exactly the same way, where your kids' safety is paramount. And even a doctor being like, are you a crazy person too? You're going to be like, no, I need my child to remain safe. I can see your point of view a little bit. Like I can understand why this movie is a completely different thing for you.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time I've watched this movie as a parent. I'd seen it 2 or 3 times. Like I said, it's the one I've seen the least out of all of them because I went crazy watching them as a teenager. But my first time watching it as a parent, and like the thing that was always not necessarily at the forefront, but like definitely like just beneath the surface is like, what am I doing in this position to protect my kid? Absolutely. And I lost my mind at like the next scene where the nurses come in to give the kid sedative or whatever. And the baby was like, no. His mom said, no. I'm saying, no, don't fucking stick that kid with any needles. And they sneak attack the kid with it. Like that would never happen.
Yeah. I agree that it would never happen. But like, I also understand the need for the sneak attack, because at this point they believe that Heather Langenkamp is like probably on like every drug known to mankind or suffering from like the most severe mental breakdown, and they're like, this kid needs to sleep, so like just give him a sedative.
So let me tie all of this together.
I also, if I can, sorry, just
no, go ahead. Yeah,
babysitter is also, I don't know if it's legal, but I would consider the babysitter to be a guardian, especially in the absence of a coherent parent. If they think the parent is on drugs or schizophrenic or whatever, the babysitter is the next legal guardian.
And again, like the thing is, they're probably looking at it in terms of like what can be considered an actual legal guardian, and a babysitter in their
I mean, if there's no paper sign saying she's a legal guardian, then she's not a legal guardian.
So to them, the doctors and stuff, they're probably looking at it being like, the legal guardian is out of commission, can't do anything because she's crazy, and the babysitter is just regurgitating what the legal guardian is saying, we
Yeah.
have to supersede. We have to do this. And
Yeah, you're right. It was still so angering.
Let me tie all of this together. Like you guys have talked about a lot of things that happen in the next few minutes. She freaks out. The doctors tell her to go home. Julie's with Dylan. Julie has Dylan, and they reunite.
I have to go make an earth cake. Just kidding. I have to go.
Yeah.
You just have to
Can we go get Rex now? The bad man is getting close, which was had a lot of gravity behind it because Dylan's a fucking nightmare through this whole movie. The doctor wants to keep Dylan there, even though Heather wants to take her out, which you can probably relate to. Like, let me take my fucking kid home. I don't know what's going on here. And Heather's on a mission now to go home and get Rex. Heather's hair has a streak of gray through it now, which is in reality, but feels like I still think to this point she's going to wake up from this dream. Anyway, now the police are involved. The nurses now try to zonk the kid with some sort of sedative, and Julie fucking elbows the nurse in the face and then threatens another. They accuse Heather of drug abuse, right? So when she gets into that room, the wound on her arm starts bleeding again, and they have her detained.
There's no evidence of drug use either. I'm going to dwell
not
on
even a little bit. No,
there's no evidence of drug use. I think this is probably, in my opinion, the weakest writing of the movie. Is that all the medical staff thinks she's on drugs, but there's no symptoms of drug use. There's no evidence of it except that her kid is experiencing like symptoms of schizophrenia. If your kid is having like whatever pediatric schizophrenia, I doubt that your first instinct is to 100% confirm that the parents are on drugs.
But
maybe
I'm wrong.
But
I don't know. It's an interesting situation because at this time in history, the war on drugs is happening. There's crack and cocaine out there, and the rise of pills and stuff. Yeah. You know, I think that they're literally just accusing her of being stoned on weed. You know, but Dylan does see Freddy at this point, and then we get this great sequence of Julie. I'm gonna try to stretch this out so Steve comes back. So I just wanted to catch us up to this point.
Oh, there he is.
Julie gets murdered in the most Freddy Krueger way that we've seen in this movie this far, where Freddy Krueger's in the room manipulating her body, and then we get the great scene where they're doing the thing where the room is on its side.
The rotating room. That's the other thing I wanted to bring up, like the homage to the first one. They use the same
homage to the first one
room effect.
This is where the movie starts to turn into the first movie, which is I think this is when your Freddy Krueger fandom starts to show, where you're screw your past. When she says screw your past, that's where it begins, and then the hair turns white, and then she gets killed on the ceiling as the girl in the first movie does, which is
torn up the wall. The blood streak is so cool too.
Yeah,
and she gets taken to the top, and he's torturing her. He's already stabbed her in the back, and then he decides to end it, and he just touches her head, and her neck breaks, and it makes a very loud crack. I think this is the best death in the movie, just because of how much gravity there is.
The real question is
fully related to another movie, but
do you think that the death in the first movie is better than this one? I think the first.
Is this a reference to the Johnny Depp kill in the first?
No, it's a reference to the Tina death, the first death in the first
Tina movie. Yes, okay,
because she's
this exact thing happens in the first
blood
movie.
Splatter that the killer, the limo driver references, but this is Tina getting.
Yeah, this is the literally the same death happens in this scene that happens in the first movie, and I think there's something a lot more visceral and horrifying about it in the first movie than in this one, which is I don't know what it is. I think it's maybe the lighting. I don't know. Craig, back me up over here. What do you think is better?
It might be
because I agree with you.
Part of it, I think that they maybe have perfected the technique a little more, so it's a little more polished. And I appreciate the unpolished. It looks more realistic when it's unpolished. It looks like someone might be.
I also think there's something about she gets dragged into the corner in the original movie, right? Like
You can almost see in the original movie when the room is rotating, like you can see her bump around as the room spins,
which makes it,
you don't get that
I think, feel a little bit more violent. I don't know, but like,
it's a very violent death though, because he stabs her in the back, and then like he's like just carrying her up, and from the point of view of the people in that room, they're just seeing a person get carried up to the top of to the ceiling, which reminds me of that the scene in one of the movies, I think 3 or 2 maybe, where they're in the classroom and the person's just like getting killed, with everybody's just there seeing the person die, which I think is a really interesting thing about Freddy.
When
the
4
fourth one, when they had the exam and he sucked like the
air
insides out.
Yeah.
Hey, wanna suck face?
Yeah.
But we also get our first view of like full what his look is here, which is the first time we
with lights on him.
Yeah, and this was where we go full Freddy from here to the end of the movie.
And it's harsh lighting, and it is like, I love it, man. I love
it. Also, going back to the difference between the first movie scene and this one, it's probably also like a safety and standards thing.
Right.
It was probably very dangerous, that first one they filmed, and they probably had like
and this one they're like, we need 3 different types of stunt people to do this.
Yeah, they were like, Tina almost broke her neck. We almost lost our actress.
We knew those harness pants from earlier in the movie when we had the kid literally standing on top of a.
Like, what do you mean we need harness pants? We spent all the budget on Freddy's leather pants.
Which were also harness pants.
And I look good, bitch.
He's got like a big he's got a big earth cake in the back. You know what I'm saying? But I do like, it is such a massive visual change from what we're used to this. And it is like, it's like watching someone redesign something for like Fortnite or something, like a Fortnite skin, you know, like you see what your memory is of like RoboCop versus like the RoboCop version in Fortnite, where like it looks so fucking slick and clean and good, and like I kind of hate that I like it, but I fucking like it a lot. And like,
sidebar, the RoboCop is the only content I've ever paid for in Fortnite.
Oh my god!
I mean, I have the RoboCop skin.
Yeah, I missed the promo where you could get them for free, and I missed it.
Yeah, I would pay for this Freddy style skin,
this version of Freddy
as well.
I don't. He's like trying to shoot the gun. He's like, my claws are getting in the way.
But his pea coat is really stylish, I thought, when he's got the hat and the pea coat on.
It is weird though that he's wearing leather pants and not a leather trench coat. You know, like
a leather
I don't know if I want to see that top to bottom leather outfit.
I don't think so either, but I'm also like, maybe just don't do the leather pants either. Like, it's such
I agreed. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But I like the combat boots. Like, it's just red and green. The sweater that he wears is such a strange color combination with the rest of it, but I think that green hat just like really throws it together, where I'm like, no, it works with the green hat there. It works. You take that hat away, it's
wear the red and green sweater. Next
Halloween,
I think
we can all admit
a sweater from Spirit's Halloween, and that's just not for a costume. That's just gonna be a sweater.
Just to have. Yeah. Just do you have that in your closet?
How would you guys have felt if they did like a complete color change? Like if they didn't do the.
If he's in like blue and orange,
or just
what's interesting about that is when they show that kid on the bike that I mentioned earlier, it is a little bit different because it's out of frame, so they had to change the color a bit. But since I'm watching it in 4K, it was blue and red were the colors, but it was that very significant stripe, and it was very there to be like Freddy is in that scene with them. But if you watch this on a TV in 1994, you can't differentiate the color in a background.
I mean, but if you look on the inside, on like the inner coating of the jacket, it's red. The hat is green, which, you know, so the inner coat matches with the sweater, and like the hat matches with the sweater. But then he's also got those fucking Data from Star Trek Next Generation the iris colors in or whatever. Like he's got contacts in his eyes to match his sweater. I'm like, this Freddy is stylish. Cool. This is what we call a Freddy fit. You know, like
fit. I was gonna say something, but it wouldn't be as good as that. Freddy fit.
Let's start a clothing company called Freddy Fit, and it's just
all red and green clothes.
Yeah.
perfectly balanced.
This fall, get your new Freddy fit, bitch.
Good.
Ding,
I'm
ding.
gonna do it.
Comes with contacts and a green felt fedora. But
So
I mean, I think we all agree it looks pretty sick, right? Like we like.
yeah, it's great, and this whole sequence is great. I think this sequence is going to stick with me. I'm thinking I'm gonna. This is one of those horror movie moments that I'm going to think about all the time. Be like, yeah, that was great. That the way that they used a literal rotating room. It's a full practical effect room that they used. It's great. I love it. Heather,
I mean, it should be like again. It is an homage and a direct reference to the first movie, which is like good. But it's also where it starts, right? Where you're like the rest of the movie now from this point on is
Freddy
just
movie. Yeah.
Freddy. It's going back to the first movie. How do you feel about the line?
Hey, Dylan, you want to learn how to skin a cat?
And then he just like,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's his best line. I feel like he doesn't have really
No.
good lines in this movie. That's one thing that kind of
No, and I feel like I mean that's probably deliberate, and I don't like that they tried to slip one of those in there. Maybe it's the demon, like some of Freddy's
That's what I'm
bleeding over
thinking.
into the demon's personality a bit, but
imagine he spoke like a crazy language that doesn't exist anymore. Instead, being like,
Hey, dude, una calda, huh? Bitch.
But he still says bitch all the time. You're like,
Aramaic.
"Whoa, the fuck?" He knows the word bitch. Turns out bitch is the oldest word in all of human language and demonic
he's
language.
in the voodoo that Chucky uses to Chucky other people and Cult of Chucky.
Oh, I gotta watch that
Bitch.
movie.
Oh man, Cult of Chucky is a great film.
It
Just to
sounds
move us
bonkers.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Just to move us along a little bit, Heather bounces. She calls her movie dad because Dylan is missing. He's headed for the freeway. They bring up so many times and so many points in this film, to the point that it's the freeway thing is brought up twice before this. And then they show him going up a hill to the freeway, and we get a flashback. I know, Steve, you
he
hate it
climbs
when
like
they
a 10-foot
flashback.
fence.
I hate this thing in movies, but I was okay
Yeah.
with this. But I would have preferred if it was just like a little less.
Allow your viewer to
Okay,
at least
a little
get
less
this
obvious.
one.
They mentioned the freeway so many times that, of course, where else is he going to go? You know, like, but
Yeah. How many guns
This
does Chekhov have? Do you know what I'm saying?
this is also like the time in
So many
Hollywood where
guns.
they would go to the audience. They would have test audiences, and they'd be like, "So what did you not like, and what did you like?" And then they would come out and they'd be like, "I didn't understand why he went to the freeway. Why would he do that?" And it's like, well, remember,
we'll
like,
make that more obvious. We'll
remember
make that
the
more clear
four
the next
other times when she kept saying that our house is across the freeway? And he's like, yeah, I remember that, but why did he cross it? It's like, well, because that's where the house is.
He wanted to go
Rex
get
is.
Rex.
Rex is on
That's
the other
pretty
side of the
obvious.
highway.
I understand that, but why?
Do
Why?
you redneck? Do you Republican understand?
But why?
No,
would
I
When he
don't.
crosses the highway, I gotta believe he's
Frick.
sleepwalking because no conscious, sane kid, and maybe he is insane, but no normal kid is gonna cross a freeway. That kid would be terrified. Like I know
Listen,
kids
I
do weird
have-
things,
But
so
he's
I'll give him.
sleepwalking. So when you're sleepwalking, you don't
That's
have
what.
a
Yeah,
normal-
was he sleepwalking? Is that the
Guard your
consensus?
ears, friends.
He's definitely sleepwalking. He's definitely sleepwalking because he was injected with sleep drugs.
My theory for this whole movie is that
Wait. Everybody stop for a second. Shh. Go.
check. My theory for this whole thing has been that Freddy was the kid the whole time. Whenever he's like not himself.
Oh, like when he's being taken over.
When he's speaking in tongues, when he's drawing Freddy's face.
Well, I think that
The kid is possessed like Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
yes.
Like Freddy's inside him.
But
Okay.
Yes.
okay, but you're also now like you bring this up right now at this exact moment when Freddy is dangling the child over the thing. So you're saying that Freddy
Well,
is
no.
possessed the child and he's also dangling the child? Is that what you're saying?
Before we get to that, though, like the special effect for Freddy appearing in the clouds in reality, there's no dreams happening at this point, as far as I can tell.
The kid
Is incredible.
Unless the kid's
clouds
sleepwalking.
forming
Yeah,
into
he
Freddy was
is.
so fucking
It was
cool.
a bad effect, but it worked. Like it was
Yes.
creepy as fuck, but it like obviously
It's
was an
like
effect.
it's 90s bad, but like
Yeah.
today good kind of, because like it is supposed to be a dream because he literally was just injected with sleep drugs by the hospital where those drugs are very potent. He's sleepwalking. He's absolutely sleepwalking. So when he turns around
I
and
never
sees
thought
Freddy
about
with
that
the cat,
until now.
he's asleep. Yeah. That's
But
why
she can
Freddy-
see it, and he can see it, and the people on the freeway can't see it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they just see a floating child.
Yeah.
Right.
Being dipped
Because
up and
they're
down.
not dreaming. He's dreaming. And Freddy's in the dream. So there
There's
is
one guy
dream
who's
walking.
like, "Am I dreaming or am I seeing a floating kid over here?"
Over here. This sequence, so I always talk about this in films. I love chaos. I love when there's just like a chaotic
This is the
moment
most
when things are
chaotic
just
shit.
happening.
Yeah.
It's crazy. There's crashing and people freaking out. And then
For a
also,
long time too.
yeah, for like
Oh.
a solid 3 or 4 minutes. And then Heather gets full on hit by a car so fucking hard.
Yep.
And she just gets up. So
It had to happen. Like the scene was so long, someone had to be hit by a car.
Yeah.
They couldn't make that scene
Yeah.
go that long without.
There were two things that I said during this scene. One was she gets hit by a car and then she rolls, and then a bunch of people get out and they're like, "Are you all right?" And then someone comes up.
No,
and,
get away from me! I have to save my son.
yeah, but then someone's like, "Holy shit, are you Heather Langenkamp, the lady who starred in the first Freddy Krueger movie?"
You're the girl from that movie with the.
and then there's just like a quick flash of an army of Freddies that doesn't really mean anything. Just like, oh my god, the Freddies
yeah.
are coming.
Yeah, the Freddys are coming. Well, again, I think that's supposed to be him or her that sees that, right?
Yeah. And then a weird stylistic choice for this film. There's just a siren sound happening while she gets back home up until she like gets in the house, which I thought was really
That threw me off. I
think-
thought there was actual sirens on my street. Like,
so
the
did
way-
I.
Yeah. So I guess
This
it's just okay.
movie
I mean,
does
my
the
street is
best
full of sirens
job.
all the time. So I'm
You
like,
live in Siren Alley, Steve. But this movie does the best job of making you feel like you're in a dream, I think, of any of the Freddy Krueger movies, because this movie isn't about the most stylistic kill. It's the most about
No, it fucks with
making a
reality
dr-
more than the other ones do.
exactly, like making it feel like you're in a dream while you're watching the movie.
Yeah, all the other movies, even though you might not realize it right away, after the fact, you're like, yeah, that was definitely a dream. That was not. That was a dream. That was not. This movie, like, even after seeing it several times, we're still questioning, like, was that part a dream? Was that part not a dream? So yeah,
which I
very
absolutely love. I think that's why for all of us it kind of puts this movie up there, head and shoulders above at least the worst Nightmare on Elm Street movies. It definitely feels like one of the better ones because of the ethereal nature of just regular scenes. The whole movie, I'm wondering, is this, because I didn't know until I finished it today. You know, like I didn't know if it was.
it
all
also
a dream
does a
in
thing
the
that
end.
I think we all like, which is like scrub away the shit about Freddy Krueger that nobody really enjoys, which is like the before he was a dream monster thing. We like Freddy as a character, as a monster, but
Right.
we don't like what he was in the beginning. And like I approve of it. And like this could have been an opportunity to like remove itself from that, to just make it sort of like an evil entity. But you know, it didn't take off, I guess. Or like, you know, it's also a good like ending, a bookend to it, you know, just to be like, it's over for real this time.
I think it is an important movie to have in, like, you and I discussed, Steven, a little bit. What if this movie isn't part of the main story, but I think
isn't
great, like you just said, though. I think it is a great way to bookend.
Yeah. I mean, today we were talking about it, and because last week, Craig, we gave Chucky like a speech that he made to be like, well, it's finally here. I'm out of the fucking grimoire. I guess I ran out of movies. And so I was like, should we do one for this episode? And I'm like, I have one, but it's not great. But also, is this really the end of it? And it's not even really the end, because the last one is technically the end. And this one is its own unique thing that is separate from it, because it's not Freddy Krueger. It's a dream demon from a billion years ago in Babylonian times or whatever.
But I feel like, did they not touch on that concept a bit in Freddy's Dead? That like, it's not like that there was another entity.
Yeah,
that was
he got his
A little
powers.
bit, yeah.
He got his powers from dream demons or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
there was those dream demons you were supposed to put your 3D glasses
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, the gargoyle dream demons.
And I think that in this, like, Wes Craven is like, I like that idea, but I hate the idea of it still being Freddy. Like, I kind of want Freddy to be something different than what we started
it's not
with.
Freddy. He's just a representation of.
Because how much can you do with a burnt pedophile from hell? Like, it's like, you really don't want
reboot it in 2005.
Son of a thousand maniacs.
It's the worst fucking movie ever.
And you're like, you know what? Maybe let's try again and remove the things that people find kind of distasteful and unsettling. You know, we don't really need that. He could just be
We all know it's there. Just give us something more interesting.
That's my main issue with the remake, is that they really fly high with that stuff.
I appreciate I think what they were attempting to do with the remake, in that they wanted to give more of that like child pervert backstory to make you hate Freddy more. Like, I appreciate what they were going for there. That just didn't come together.
But the thing is that, like, we don't hate Freddy, and that's
no, we love him. We love to hate him. Like,
we love to hate him, but we don't love to hate him because he's a pedophile pervert. We want to like him still a little bit, you know. And when you do that,
he's funny.
The jokes don't come
his
off
best
funny.
jokes are in the sixth one, which is not a great movie, but like now I'm playing with power, and he holds up his power glove, and he has a glove.
But people have forgotten at this point that he's a pervert. They're like, oh yeah, I forgot that he was a pervert. Remember when he was a pervert?
Freddy was a pervert. And in the movie, he's not making a ton of those jokes. Like, the New Nightmare and the first movie are the two movies that are like closest to the original vision. You mentioned earlier, like, Wes Craven's original vision, or maybe I read it online. Wes Craven's original vision was for it to be like the first movie to be far darker and creepier, but like, it's pretty fucking dark. There's not any comedy.
The first movie actually was meant to be way more actually like perverted, in line with the 2011 one, but they pulled it back because like an actual scandal happened in real life where they're like, we cannot actually like we can't do this. So like,
simultaneous to that movie, a thing that happened that was very similar to the Freddy story in the movie, so they had to be like, maybe we don't tell it.
Yeah, probably a good call, but I wonder how the franchise would have gone if the movie was the original vision.
Yeah,
they probably wouldn't have got a second one. People would have been like, this is fucked. It would have been like an Evil Dead situation where they're like, you get one more and that's it, and then the next one has.
You guys doing Evil Dead? You guys got to have me on for an Evil Dead if you're
absolutely. We would.
I have told Jason that I love Evil Dead more than any of these Grimoire pages.
Yeah,
I love to do Evil Dead.
Oh man, something's vibrating.
One time I forced Jason to watch Evil Dead with me over the internet, over headset at like 4 a.m. once.
4 a.m. It
was watching it now.
Yeah, so Evil Dead 2, in fact. Mm-hmm. So Movie Dad is at the house, and so is Dylan. Movie Dad, as in the dad that was the dad from the original. I noticed that Dylan's pajamas are ripped, so like in reality, he was picked up by the claw in that freeway scene.
The claw,
and
the claw.
The claw.
The note that I have here is Freddy is coming for you from the kid's bed. Heather and Movie Dad are calling each other like in the TV, but they're talking to each other in real life, which was this is where it gets really fucking weird. It's so fucking bizarre that they did it this way. I love it. She asked him to call Robert Englund. He's of course out of town. Freddy appears from the bed. And on the TV, the same conversation is being shown. Like I just said, the TV is unplugged. This is what you guys were talking about earlier. And then she picks up a sleeping pill off the ground. She finds Rex on the floor, torn to shit. And then the trail of pills, the Hansel and Gretel of it all. The Hansel and Gretel of it all, ladies and gentlemen. So she slams all of the pills. I think there were
I
6 or
don't
7
count how many
pills.
sleeping pills she took.
It had to be 6 pills.
Like
She-
that would kill her.
I think she's just.
And I wrote she's gonna dream warrior it.
Yeah, that's the idea. She's dream warring it, and I mean the symbolism or whatever you want to call it is brilliant here. I love this.
She's going down the tube.
Parallel between the Hansel and Gretel breadcrumbs. This is how you get to like back home from the witch's house to eating these sleeping pills is how you get to the nightmare where I am. I love that dichotomy.
You know what it's called though, Craig? The Fred dimension. The Fred dimension. Is that anything?
Is that a joke? I don't understand.
The Fred, like it's the Fred dimension, but it's the Fred dimension.
Oh, like it's one word.
Yeah, it's like a tube. It's a tube that she goes down. She gets pulled through. It's very wet.
Yeah, when she gets to like that last
Get
sleeping
pulled through
pill,
bramble.
I think instead we call it the Fredlopian tubes.
Yes.
When you fall down the tube.
I'm writing that down.
Or the Kruger hole, the K hole. So like she falls into the sheets. She's going through the sheets. And Craig, like you're right, man. It's so fucking good where it's like she's going into the story that he's told her that it's his favorite story. And she's almost like preparing herself where she's like, I know that this is his favorite story. And I know that Fred has been fucking with her, or sorry, with him. I'm taking the pills. I'm going into his tent, and then the tent is getting bigger and more complicated. And like, I kind of like that.
She gets that parallel too, like,
and it has that sort of like film school vibe to it. You know, when like somebody does something interesting with like sheets or whatever. I don't know if you've ever watched like a film, a college film or something, and been like,
no, I agree, and that is the thing they've done through this whole movie. When she goes in, when she sees into the Fred dimension, underneath,
you're still trying to make Fred dimension work, aren't you?
I'm making it happen underneath the casket at the beginning of the movie, and then when she goes under the blankets here, and
but then when it kind of like tilts forward and she's sliding. And she's going through the sheets, and then it transforms into what almost looks like the interior of the furnace from her home in the movies to begin with. Exactly. And then they start to,
and also like the thing that we see at the very beginning of the movie as well, like that furnace area that they're creating the claw in at the very beginning of the movie.
Which is it's almost like a more medieval industrial looking.
I'm actually going to mention the Fred dimension for a second, because there has to be a Fred dimension.
Thank you.
Like when nobody's dreaming, when none of the Elm Street kids are dreaming.
We've talked about this. Yeah, I like
the Fred dimension
where he's just like,
where's he hanging out?
Ting, 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 ting. Is anybody asleep yet?
And he's like looking.
It's like
ears
in Rick and Morty, where he goes to like that cabin.
Like,
yeah, he's got the kid and the
wife. He pulls out chapstick, and he's like trying to get the chapstick out.
Trying to get the chapstick on, like
God. He's like, my lips are chapped.
Jesus Christ, bitch.
This reminds me of.
But then he's like putting it all over his face because his whole face is chapped because it's so like
that's
wet.
Giant piece of chewing gum.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say? What were you saying?
Speaking of trying to do delicate things with claw hands, and we've already talked about Edward Scissorhands. I'm gonna bring up porn. There is a porno called Edward Penis Hands, and it is the best fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. Not for the sex so much, but for the in-between scenes. They try to make
sex is good, but not really.
It's so fucking good. He tries to eat spaghetti with penis hands, and it's the goddamn funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. That's all I need to say. If you're gonna go watch a funny porn, go watch Edward Penis Hands. It's
just as a side note, I noticed on Tubi that all of those Blue Nui pornos, those softcore porns, they're all on Tubi, like a bunch of them. But they cut all the sex out of them. So if you want to go back and watch Moon Maidens 2, it's just no, well, actually, I think that they added an hour of porn to a 90-minute movie, because I don't know how they get a 70-minute movie out of it. Anyway, I noticed that. I was just clicking around Tubi, and I was like, Moon Maidens 2, I recognize these porn stars. Anyway. She finds the script on the ground inside the Fred dimension.
I think even more meta.
and Dylan's there too. And the best line of the movie, Freddy's line in this movie, is he appears, he starts fighting, he conjures snakes, which I thought was awesome.
And eels.
Why did it have to be snakes?
And eels. Why did it have to be? Why did it have to be eels? Reference to the latest Indiana Jones movie. But
Indiana Jones 6, Under the Sea, under the sea, under the sea.
He's like trying to drown Heather, and the snakes are there and everything. And he goes, "Pick a pet for the Rugrat, bitch." There's our bitch for the movie.
Yeah, he had to say it.
He had to say it, and I would have been fine if like that was the only thing he said the entire movie, because like
Right.
every time he speaks in this movie, it doesn't really add anything to it. But
Yeah, because in the earlier movies, every time he speaks, especially in the later ones, every time he says anything, it's like a one-liner.
and it's
Yeah.
good, and it's like a
great.
Schwarzenegger level.
Good.
Like we're here for these one-liners.
Yeah,
but
it's
in this movie-
Commando. Yeah,
Yeah, but in
absolutely.
this movie, they don't really fit or make sense.
No, so it's weird. Like I understand they must have had a challenge, a struggle to like, how do we make Freddy speak in this movie? How often
Yeah.
does he speak, and how do we? What's his cadence? What is he?
I kind of almost think that like before, like having him speak in like a weird non-existent language would have been cool, or like have him say things that are like weirdly brutalist, like just like nothing
Yeah.
that references anything around him, more just like what he's doing, you know, being like drown for those who drown before you, or like something
Yeah,
like
like
crazy.
a
Like,
Lovecraftian kind
Yeah.
of vocabulary
Yeah.
or vernacular, and like I would have appreciated a less Robert Englund voice. Like if someone else literally did the voice, because
I'm okay with that.
Tell it's
because-
Robert Englund.
The reason I'm okay with that is because the last demon form that he took was Robert Englund. So I'm okay with him having this sort of transitionary period where he's like,
I've been this guy for 10 years, so I can't
Yeah.
stop saying bitch.
like maybe if he just said bit, like, yeah, like
I don't even know what a power glove is, bitch.
Yeah, and I don't even know what a bitch is, bitch. I just know that I call you bitch.
Brrr. He's burning at the end.
That burning was nice. That was
After Freddy is punched, stabbed, and burned, he chases Dylan to a furnace and gets caught. She can't climb stairs, just like in a dream. And Freddy,
this like, and then this is also direct to the first one, where
Right.
when her last nightmare in the first one, the stairs are goop, like they're.
but also, I want to ask
Or-
you guys: have you guys ever had a nightmare where like you can't run or you can't climb upstairs? I had a dream. I'll answer first. I had a dream when I was a kid that I was in the Simpsons house and I couldn't climb the stairs. And when I saw this, and in the first movie, I was directly shown basically in these films exactly what I saw in a dream. Wasn't in the Simpsons house. Also, I had that thing where you can't run, which doesn't really
You try
happen.
to run, but
The
you're standing
freeway
still.
scene is kind of like that, but
I once
This-
had a
the
dream where I
goopy
was in the Simpsons house and I got all the way up the stairs and I went into Bart's room and then Lisa's room and then the parents' room and I was like, "Wow, the Simpsons!" And then I slid down the rail.
everything was fine. It was your
The
nicest dream
stairs,
you ever had.
though, the like oatmeal stairs. It was oatmeal they used in the first movie.
Oh, I was wondering
with
because
the
it always reminded me of like marshmallow, like like a melting marshmallow, and like
No,
it
it was
still looked like
oatmeal.
this.
I don't know what they did for New Nightmare, but the first one was oatmeal. But that was based on a Wes Craven dream. So like that's going back to that
A lot of this
You
though,
brought
like this Wes Craven nightmare talk, I think that Jason is like when Jason says like a thing that like, yeah, we've all had that dream kind of thing. I'm like, I think Wes Craven just takes the dreams that we've all had and just like makes
Yeah.
them a little bit more.
yeah, like
spooky.
he has them as well. Like I mean, he has said
Yeah.
that stair thing was a dream he had. He woke up and he wrote that scene. from
Like
having-
instead of Wes Craven turning to somebody and saying like, have you ever had a dream where somebody wanted to punch you in the face and then you tried to punch them in the face but you couldn't do it because your arms
like
turned
punching
into
through
very slow
molasses.
motion? It's like, yeah, we've all had that before. And he's like, well, what if that guy had a
The movie
claw
about it.
glove? what if
Yeah.
what if he was punching you with claws? And you're like, fuck.
what if
that's
I was
scary.
burnt in the
Yeah.
face?
He was burnt and he was clawing at you.
Well,
Then what?
Freddy unhinges his face to eat Dylan, but Heather gets there in time. She
Oh, I
stabs
love
him
that effect.
in
Oh,
the dick.
that was
She
so
stabs
creepy.
his dick, and he strangles her with a tongue while Dylan navigates through a snake. Dylan stabs the tongue while the psycho screech plays. This was the psycho thing that I was talking about earlier. It's like rant at this moment, which I thought was great. There's a lot of references to other horror in this.
Yeah, the strangling with the tongue. I think that may be a reference to the third one, the Dream Warriors.
Right?
When
Yeah.
the
The
guy took
tongue is also
advantage
kind of a
over.
leech as well, like which I thought was interesting. Exciting dreams from Picard.
Yeah, Picard's here. Hey, Picard.
Dreams have got it going on. I think that this entire ending is like, it's kind of shitty. I don't really like it. Like, I don't like, apart from her coming up the stairs, I think that all of it is kind of like, I'm just like, oh, okay, I know what's going on, and I know what's going to happen, and I don't really care.
My thing about all of this is that it felt like they did too much in the middle of the movie, and this ending sequence could have been longer and scarier.
The movie's already 2 hours. Like maybe it was longer, and kind of.
And like the thing is that I like so much of this movie that, and I even like everything about this end area. Like all of it is cool looking. Like I love the weird sort of like architectural influence that seems to be like pulled from all sorts of fairy tales and ancient
it's like a castle. Yeah,
it's like Babylonian, it's fucking Roman, it's Greek, it's like medieval. It's got like all this sort of weird influence from all of time, which is like, as far as we know, that's what this creature is meant to be, right? Is like a creature that exists through all of time. So where would his
Ghostbusters ghost?
Where would his final battle take place? In something that he's familiar with, which is all time. So it's like, I'm going to have this area, and I'm also going to make sure that you're scared of it. And then she comes down in here. The scariest thing to her is that her son is down here, but he's also, corralled him off and knocked her out. And he's, just because he wants to kill. The way I looked at it is that he wants to kill her he wants to kill the son in front of her. That's like, he wants to kill innocents in front of her, have her witness it, and then that's like his ultimate game or whatever.
I thought it was really funny that he gets stuck in the door the way that he does, because he can't get through. And it's kind of like Step Freddy. Step Freddy, what are you doing?
1, 2, Freddy's coming for a call. I'm stuck. Oh, fuck.
Give me a second.
Hold on.
His arm was stretching.
The stretchy arm.
One thing that I did want when he was stretching like that is for his hand to be like, like crawling across the wall. Like he can't quite reach, but he's like pulling it extra with like his claws across it. We didn't get that. Would have been nice. But
we did get him do he scratches it like as a chalkboard.
I know, but so my issue is that it's all been telegraphed. We know what's going to happen here. We saw the Hansel and Gretel. We saw the pills. We know that he's going to get burned in the oven. The only thing we can hope for is that it's going to be spectacular, and it really isn't. And that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Is we already know what's going to happen here, and what we want to happen in our minds is something so crazy. It's going to be crazier than any other Freddy death we've ever seen. Yeah. And it's actually maybe one of the worst Freddy deaths.
Well, what ends up happening is they do the switcheroo, and they end up getting him in the furnace, and the furnace doesn't even burn that bright, but he does get burnt up, and then he turns into a demon. We get a final shot of him switching from Freddy into like a horned devil, and then he explodes.
It's a 90s morph. If you've ever seen like any morph in the 90s, it's terrible.
Yeah, and it harkens back to Freddy's Dead. Like they do a similar thing at the end of that movie.
Yeah,
like, terrible CG and him like taking different forms.
Also, after the explosion, they run and they jump into the pool or whatever, and then everything starts to blow up. But I don't know if you guys heard this, because I had headphones on and I was like, what? And I rewound it because I was like, I didn't just like accidentally get another sound effect from like one of my other apps that are on in my, like I was convinced that this couldn't be right. But there's a moment when everything's blowing up and you see like a little explosion, like, and then you just hear ball. Like it's like ball. And I'm like, what? And it sounded like a Doom, like when you shoot a Doom monster, and it's like ball. Like that's what it sounds like. I'm like, did Doom come out? Have they? Did they just take a Doom note?
Doom was 90.
Well, Doom probably came out
Doom?
like 93 or 92. So yeah,
You're gonna find
could
out.
have been a
Doom.
reference. I was playing on a 486.
Fuck yeah,
It's
I
very
remember.
subtle, but it's like a.
Oh shit, Doom. What? Oh wait, no. Oh, 93. So Doom was out
Yeah.
a year prior to this.
That's what I said.
Yeah, nice.
Anyway, they make it back to the real world. Explosion, real world was the next note that I wrote. But the script is there, and what happened over the last few days happened in the script. And she starts reading the script to Dylan like the Hansel and Gretel story.
Yeah,
and
that's
the
where it goes
end.
full Spaceballs.
Yeah, that's when it goes full Spaceballs.
I mean, some would call it full never-ending story, but not me.
Yeah. So yeah. That's the end of the film. We covered it in it's a longer movie, so it was of course a situation where we're going to
It's also an
go
old
in.
guest where we like just chit-chatting about random things for 25 minutes here and there.
I think this episode here is going to do better than all of the episodes of Blossom Buddies combined. Craig, welcome to the Five Timers Club.
Yeah, probably. I don't know what our total downloads are from Blossom Buddies.
We're already at 64,000 views on this channel, so there are Blossom Buddy episodes that have been incorporated into that. But this was a great film. So, do you guys want to talk about a situation where we do our final thoughts, our Home Alone of it all, and our ratings?
Yeah,
we do.
No, I want to stop the podcast now. Good night.
Good night.
If you had to pick one.
No.
What do you think
But
the Home
when
Alone of it
is
all?
the Home Alone of it all?
Can someone please tell me when the Home Alone?
I
of it
really
all
gotta
happens?
know.
When is the Home Alone of
What
it all?
is the Home Alone of it all?
Now that's the Home Alone of it all.
Steve, I presume all those voices are you.
Those are all me. Those are all my
Oh,
different
you're just
personalities.
talking to yourself.
Live inside of
All
me.
manic voices all at the same time. So this, of course, we have melded everything together. Craig, I don't know if you've been here since we've done it like this, but now what it is the Home Alone of it all, of course, is when Kevin McAllister slaps down the blueprint, and it is representative of the best part of that film that we've related to all other films where there is that sort of best part of every movie. Every movie has its best part, the part you're there to see. Just you can information give us that.
Yeah, call to action.
The call to action, your final thought and your rating, whether it be out of 5 or 10 or stars or bags of popcorn, whatever you want. The floor is yours.
My final thoughts. I mean, there's at this point in the franchise, there's 7 Freddy movies. Whether you want to acknowledge Freddy versus Jason and the remake or not, we're at 7 movies at this point. Of those movies, because I do not acknowledge the later ones, I would place this after 1 and 3. I would probably go 1 and then 3, and then I might tie this with number 2, and then 4, and then 6, and then 5. 5 being the worst. Final thoughts. I thought we were gonna have a hard time talking about this movie because all the horror movies we've done that I've been on anyway up until this point have been silly. And this is not a silly film at all. It's the opposite. I was watching it. This is actually like a quality film. It's not campy. It's not making jokes. So I thought it was going to be hard to talk about. It obviously hasn't been. This has been 3.5 hours. 7 stars out of 10. I'm going to give this movie.
Well, wow. I mean, thank you.
Of course, 7 blades out of 7 finger blades out of 10.
It's 2 more finger blades than the average hand.
Than the average Freddy Krueger.
I'm talking 2. If I got 2 gloves, I got 2 hands.
Thank you again, Craig. Obviously, you're always welcome back. Your other movies include Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Flash Gordon, Knock at the Cabin,
Knock at the Door, or whatever. Yeah, and Halloween.
And this, it's always great. You have some milestone episodes tonight. I give you your own playlist of 5 episodes. You're the regular John Cena, and thank you for all that you've contributed to this.
We're gonna
show
call you
because-
John Cena from now on.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. I won't, but I'm gonna try to remember it, and I'm gonna make that my little caption name.
When you come back.
Hell yeah.
You're like, you've seen me.
You can see me. Steve, as you take a delicious sip of cider or wine, tell us about all of the things I just mentioned. Final thought.
Are we doing drink plugs? I can wait if we're doing drink
Well,
plugs.
we have a
later.
plug.
We haven't done
plugs.
plugs. We're gonna get to plugs.
Okay.
There's
I'll
a
plug
thing
the
you've
beer
never
later.
heard for plugs.
Yeah, my favorite Freddy Krueger movie is this movie, I think. I don't think that any of them are solidly placed anywhere in the top 1 to 5, but I think that the 5 that I herald as the best kind of like change and move based on how I feel when I watch them. But I will say that the majority of the time that I watch this movie, I'm like, I love this one more than the others, frankly, because it makes the first like 40 minutes of this movie makes me feel good, and in like a haunting, nice way. Whereas the other ones, I'm like, I know what's going to happen. This is all kind of cheese, whatever. But this one is like cheese in the 90s sense, where I'm like, I'm into it. I've lived this. I want to be here. I would love to be in this version of Freddy Krueger. I would love to fight Freddy. I know I'm going to lose to Freddy, but I would rather fight this Freddy than the other Freddys. Because Freddy's going to come at me.
Heather fist fights Freddy twice in this movie and does okay. So
yeah, and you know what? I'm gonna fist fuck Freddy to death in this movie if he fights me, baby.
Hey, you're right in the ass.
But what? I didn't say ass. Jesus Christ!
You said you were gonna fist him.
I said fist.
I
fuck.
said that.
I didn't say
Fist fuck.
where.
Yeah. Well, where else are you gonna fist fuck him if not in the ass?
You
His
decide.
urethra.
His urethra. Why not? It's a hole. That's a good hole to go for.
It's a good hole. I don't know if the fist is fitting in it.
Anyway, the main reason that I like this movie the most, I think, is because it is the last, and it's the one that makes you realize that it is truly over, and you're not going to get another one. And the fact that Wes Craven is no longer with us means that we'll probably never get like another faithful or good adaptation of Freddy Krueger ever again. And this was his last one. He didn't do Freddy versus Jason, but I do love Freddy versus Jason, and I do love the director of Freddy versus Jason. And I know, Craig, you seem to not like it, but like I do, and I think that it's a good movie. But is it a Freddy movie
or a Jason movie?
I would say it's 75% a Freddy movie, but we'll talk about that when we get to there. But I do like this movie a lot, and if I had to give it a rating, I would say like coming back to your high school reunion when everybody knew you as the guy who always wore the same thing, but then you came back and you decided to wear leather pants, a fucking pea coat, a nice sweater, and a fedora to match one, and also some fucking Cantex in that matched one of the colors on your sweater, and one glove. And that's why we all know that Santa Claus, Bigfoot, and Michael Jackson are the most well-known mythological creatures who ever lived.
Yeah. Fuck, I forgot Jason Ritter was in Freddy versus Jason. I might change my mind on that one. I should watch it again. I only saw it once in the theaters, and I thought the whole movie was just fan service from start to finish.
Well, do you want to come back for Freddy versus Jason in October?
Imagine we got
if you want me back for that one, I'll watch.
Imagine we got every guest who came on for both Freddy's and Jason's to all come.
We all just did a giant orgy of a podcast.
9-hour podcast.
Yeah,
I'm writing it down.
Yeah, good luck editing that audio with like 10 people on the podcast.
Yeah. Good luck, because I've never edited a single second.
Good luck, fucker. I think with my scratchy voice, I can do a pretty good Freddy impression. Help yourself, fucker.
Very good. Very good.
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy.
Let's suck face.
Let's suck face.
Yeah. Oh shit! Sorry, I forgot to clap for myself.
Listen, my Home Alone of it all was the Fred dimension, the Fredlopian tube, if you will, and basically that
That was the
I
cops
normally-
calling.
I heard that.
Did somebody just say Fred Lopian tube a second time?
I would normally be like, it's much earlier than that, but I think in this particular film, it all comes to a head there. That's not necessarily my favorite part of the movie, but what I will say is I think doing a meta-style horror movie like this was great. The ending wasn't what I thought it would be, because I thought it was all going to be a dream, but instead it was even more meta since the script was written by the movie about them making a new Freddy movie. Crazy. I would have been interested to get a sequel. I don't know how that works. I missed out on having a party of people to kill like the other films, but having Freddy stock one for the most part was cool. I give this movie a 4 out of 5. I also give this writing a new script for Hey, Did You See This One? But it's the episode we just recorded. But the script is what we just said to create next week's episode, which was all a dream, inside of a movie, inside of a script, inside of a podcast called Hey, Did You See This One?
Inside of a dream, inside of a podcast, inside of a dream, inside of. Oh my God. He's right, folks. It's written here right on my phone.
Right in your lock screen. I need to find a top to spin, I think. I forgot to bring up my Home Alone of it all. I don't know if I can pinpoint a Home Alone of it all, because things go so bonkers at the beginning. It starts at the beginning. It kicks off. There's no pretense. They're just like, hey, here's Freddy's glove. We're off to the races. So I guess the Home Alone of it all is when Heather wakes up from her first dream to the earthquake.
Mine is just when he cuts open the thing and he's in the bed sheet. Like, that's the best part. He's like,
Leon 27 is asking why we're such nerds. I don't know, because
you did this to us. You did this to us.
Star Trek fucking rules.
Thanks, Noel. Hi, Jason. Why are you a nerd? Thanks.
Stop asking.
Okay.
I just answered because being a nerd is cool.
It's true. The nerds rule the universe. It's true.
Nerds rule, jocks drool.
For better or for worse. Hey, it's time for plugs.
I'm gonna plug the beer that I've been drinking. I just came across it.
It's Craig. Hold on.
Sorry.
All right, let me just plug this in right here and.
He's dead. They're dead.
I apologize for jumping the gun there.
I've
had 3 of these beers that I love. I'll see if the camera will pick this up. It's from Long Slice Brewery, which is in Toronto, and it's called Princess Clementine, and it's a clementine sour. So it's not too sour, and it's got a very subtle like clementine orange taste to it. Fucking delicious, refreshing as fuck. I like Long Slice Brewery. If you're in Toronto or anywhere that you can get Long Slice beers, grab them, but specifically grab Clementine Sour. And I'm plugging this because I got no shit of my own to plug at the moment. I am working on a video game. I've decided to start making my own video game as a solo developer. It's in very early stages. I realize that because I've been watching a shit ton of tutorial videos, and one video that I actually just watched yesterday was just like making a video game is not the same now as it was 20 years ago. You have to set up your social media, you have to put out previews and videos and like early access shit. So I'm gonna probably before too long start making like a video blog of my game development. So watch out for that. I might have a link by the next time I'm on the podcast, but at the moment that's in very early stages.
You literally had something to plug.
I did, and I didn't realize until I started dabbling.
Yeah, you're like, I would like to plug my local brewery. Also, this passion project that I'm working on right now. Also, Craig, if you ever need, a voice
acting.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. This game is not going to have any voice. I'm going for like SNES era, so it's all going to be very chiptune and like 16-bit graphics, pixel art. We'll see how that goes, and then I might start expanding and pulling more people in.
All right. Well,
I've got a great story for this game. I can't mention it. It's got a Shyamalan phenomenon twist to it. It starts out very simple and not innocent, but
It's from our knock at the cabin.
But then it turns
right through
into
the game,
something like a Shyamalan. Something like a
Something like a
Shyamalan.
Shyamalan. Yeah, get the Pokemon sounds out. What it's like to market a show, it's a lot of work. Hey, did you see this one? Yeah, I didn't know you were doing that, Craig. So
yeah, it's
forward to
extremely early. We can talk about it off air. I'll tell you more about it, but I don't want to reveal too much to the public yet.
Sick. How about you, Steve? What do you got cooking on the old back burner this week?
Well, Darth Theorist just hit 5 million views, and it feels good.
Standing.
But I did just release one yesterday that is I wrote the script, and I would love if all of you go check it out. It's called "What If Anakin Skywalker's mother, was secretly a Sith Lord." I wrote it. And I voiced it, and I tried to treat it more like a poem than like what happens if they slap lightsabers together? I'm like, what happens if she gives away her son and then has to call him back? And it's like this devastating story. I'm like, what of that instead of what we regularly do? And you know what? Surprisingly, a lot of people are kind of into it. I thought they were going to be like, more lightsaber slapping, please. Why is this so boring? But they kind of like it. So
yeah, if you look up Darth Theorist on YouTube, that is the episode that shows up on top. I guess it's the most recent of it.
I watched it. It's a good episode. I didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. I'm not that ingrained, but it's good. It's good. Very talented people.
She's just talking about people controlling other people and what it means to be controlled by yourself, but at the same time, she's also controlling him. So it's like what it really is about is a narcissistic mother.
So what you're talking about is, the traditional view of Star Wars is Christianity, but
this version is butt sex Christianity, if you know what I mean.
You're looking at it from more like a Catholic point of view, where, to my understanding, and I'm not a religious person, the Catholics worship the mother of Jesus. So you're taking it to that vein, like the mother of Anakin is the one who's the
which
real
we call it
power
in the Star Wars community. We call that the mother load.
Yep. Oh, I call that I call lots of things the mother load.
Anyway, I think it's pretty good, and I would appreciate it if you guys check it out. We said we would do a part 2 if we get to 1,500 likes, and we're almost there. We're at 1,300 likes, so just a couple hundred more likes, y'all.
Yeah. 11,000 views for only being out a day ago. That's fucking awesome.
I liked it.
And then other than that, we do the Three-Eyed Theorist, which you can never please that crowd. They're all crazy, but we like writing it, so and whatever.
Hey, have you touched on the whole theory of Jar Jar being a Sith Lord? You're aware of that, right?
3 times, yeah.
That theory is goddamn insane. Yeah, it's so fucking cool.
We've done that 3 times, and every time I'm like, I'm not doing the Jar Jar voice, and they're like, just do it, and I'm like, okay, so this I need to talk to you. This is terrible.
Well, it was canceled. We canceled.
Yeah, it was canceled over here.
Oh God!
You should hear my Watto voice.
You're such a joker, Annie. Listen, you can find Hey, Did You See This One each and every week right here on Twitch and YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. Really, I think that it's prudent that you check us out on all social media. I think that if you're going to do one thing this year, it's watch all 176 episodes of Hey, Did You See This One? But you know what? Start at episode 100, because before that, it's a little dicey. We've really come into our own over these last 2 years. That said, I usually put this episode up the next day. I've been messing around with SEO a bit, so it depends. I'm going to put it up when my app called vidIQ tells me to put it up. So you might see it.
Give me what I want.
Yep.
Give me what I want.
In addition to that, tomorrow night, March 21st, here in Toronto, Ontario. You can find me, Jason R. Phillips, getting in front of an audience of 350 while professional wrestlers wrestle behind me. I am the announcer. I am the voice of Superkick Wrestling. And we have a show coming up tomorrow night. And in the main event, you're going to see Ren versus Jesse for the Super.
They're going to say Stimpy. I was like, what?
Ren versus Stimpy.
We've been waiting forever to see this.
Jason, bring Ren and Stimpy to the organizers. Whoever writes the themes, bring Ren and Stimpy to them. Bring Ren and Stimpy to professional wrestling 30 years later.
Oh yeah. Also, you know what? I would like to plug Craig's new playlist that I'm going to put up tonight, and I'd also like to let everybody know to watch Noel's playlist because Noel is here. They're here. Get used to it, and I just gotta work through all of these messages that Noel.
Noel has the longest.
No, me. I'm in the room. Stop it with your messages. It's me. It's all about
God,
me.
look at all that Noel.
Noel's going berserk. I've asked Noel to come on, and I've asked Noel to do this many times. Just come through. And Noel's like, "Oh, I'll just appear at the plug section."
All right, I take it back. I don't hate you anymore. You've shown a lot of boobs.
Noel, I think, is the longest reigning defending champion of Hey, Did You See This One guests. So go check out Noel's. Yeah, go check out Noel's playlist. With that, okay, let me line all this up. This is the end of the episode. Still boobs. Craig, I would like to thank you as always for coming on. Also, congratulations for making it to the 5 Times Club. It's taking longer than anybody else, considering that you have the most milestones. I think you were here. You were like the first guest beyond Steve. You were the episode like 100. Like you have all these accolades.
I feel like between like leading up to Flash Gordon and whatever I did before that, I think it was Nightmare on Elm Street 4. I think there was a big gap in there where I was worried that like you guys didn't want me as a guest anymore. That's been alleviated and that's fine. But I think there was a big gap where I was like, why haven't I been on the podcast in a while?
No, but you're in the conversation. So
yeah, I'm also a dad. Like I get it. Like you mentioned
milestones, and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I thought he was talking about kidney stones, and I was like, I don't want to talk about kidney stones for 3 hours straight. That's too long to talk about kidney stones.
You're not going to want to listen to my new podcast then.
It's called the Kidney Stone Hour.
The Kidney Stone, not hour. The Kidney Stone 3 hours.
No, I don't. I have actually no idea why that would have been a thing.
I'm sure. Well, I mean,
I don't ask Craig to come on as frequently as others because he got kids and I don't want to bug him.
Yeah,
but
they're getting older, they're getting more dependent. It's easier to put them to bed. So I'm gradually, and I knew this would happen. Having infants, you have no time to do anything. But as they get older, you get more of your own independence back.
Well, speaking of independence, Craig, there's one question that needs to be asked each and every week, and I'd like you to ask that question right now, please, if you could.
Have you seen this one?
Well, let's try that again. Let's take another crack at it.
Have you seen this one?
Oh, no, one more time.
I can't talk anymore today. Have you seen this one?
No, you got to say it right. You're the one person that needs to say it correctly.
Have you seen this one? Have you seen this one? Have you seen this one? Have you seen this one?
There's one word you need to say before the thing you're saying.
Yeah.
Hey. Have you seen this one?
Close enough. Well, we did it. So
I'm so fucking sorry I screwed up the name of the show. I had to like look it up and be like, what words am I screwing up?
It's okay. I mean,
I apologize. Hopefully it makes for a little bit of comedy at the end of a fucking 4-hour episode.
What are you talking about? It's only been 1 hour.
Oh yeah, you're right. I guess
It's
it is
only been 1 hour, Craigie Kruger. Beam up some Star Trek content with Live Long and Podcast. Tune in to X-Rated, the X-Men animated review show. Artistic interviews with graphic histories. A roundtable movie discussion with Hey, did you see this one? And movie reviews with Hold Up, a movie podcast. And while you're at it, spin a few records with Eamon on Track. Watch us duke it out on trivial debates. And let's chat about TV with the Super Mater Brothers. It's all here on the United Federation of Podcasts.